Hello, friends. This is Sam Cheney reporting for Weaponized News. Today, June 26, 2026. We got a lot of 6s and 2s today. Thank you for joining us on this Friday edition of Weaponized News. We have a special guest, Paranoid American, on the line. I'm going to get through the hooks and the intro here as quick as I can so we can bring him on and get to all this exciting news. Oh, we just bombed Iran again. Isn't that wonderful? Ukraine bombed the hell out of Russia. Aardvarkland's bombing the hell out of Lebanon. It's not looking good. It's not looking good, to say the least, for world peace here. Now we're gonna cover that. They had the big religious religious liberty council at the White House. We'll take a look at that. You got Gavin Newsom proposing a new social contract. We'll take a look at that. I don't know how much we can do with the censorship. We're going to take a look at it. What the hell, man? We're going to take a look at this, Epstein stuff, MK Ultra, Adrenochrome, all of that. Wonderful topics to take a look at with Paranoid American. Little geopolitical news. Like I said, they're bombing the hell out of Russia, and of course Russia is going to respond, so that things are only escalating there. The body count in the Venezuelan earthquake is increasing. They're saying over 50,000 Venezuelans are missing due to that 2 giant earthquakes that hit them yesterday. Quite horrific there. We'll take a look at all of that and much more on this Friday edition of Weaponized News, as I see some people coming online now slowly. Thank you for joining us. All right, let me blast through this day in history. On this day of June 26th, we go back to the year 1284, and this is a crazy one. According to the Lüneburg manuscript, a piper leads 30 children of Hamelin away, a la the Pied Piper, maybe something like that. 1807. On this day, lightning hits gunpowder warehouse in Luxembourg. 230 people die. On this day, 1848, we saw the first pure food law enacted in the United States. Now it's national security. You have to drink glyphosate. On this day in 1894, Carl Benz of Germany receives a U.S. patent for his gasoline-powered automobile. 1915, on this day, Germany suppresses Vorwärts newspaper after it called for peace. So that's the greatest sin you can commit to these warmongering maniacs, is to call for peace. And we saw much censorship here in the United States during World War I as well. On this day in 1924, after 8 years of occupation, U.S. troops leave Dominican Republic. That was good of us to go ahead and leave after all those years of occupation. On this day in 1934, we saw then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signs the Federal Credit Union Act into law, establishing credit unions. And so, pull your money out of the big banks and put it in your local credit union, and then find other ways to work around this corrupt financial system. On this day in 1940, we saw the USSR, the Soviet Union, end its experimental calendar and go back to the Gregorian calendar tomorrow on June 27th. I don't even know what kind of crazy calendar they had, but maybe that's worth a look at. The old Soviet Union calendar. On this day in 1945, the United Nations Charter is signed by 50 nations in San Francisco, and they don't do a whole hell of a lot to bring about world peace as we were promised. They're out of the United Nations. Condemning report after condemning report after condemning report against Aardvarkland genocide, and we don't get much action. There is no enforcement mechanism behind the United Nations that they're politically willing to actually do here now to stop genocide. On this day in 1975, We saw U.S. Supreme Court rules unanimously in O'Connell versus Donaldson that non-dangerous people can't be confined to psychiatric facilities without adequate treatment if able to live viably in outside society. And who makes that determination? On this day in 1993, on this day, and we do have some George Bush clips here to go over with Paranoid American. Everybody loves George Bush, right? Sure they do. Well, they love George Bush Jr., all the Democrats. They all had a big celebration at the Obama Library Center opening. So now, for all the war crimes, all the mass murder, George W. Bush has been forgiven by the Democrats, apparently. I know having a memory is a conspiracy theory, but man, you would think they could remember even, 15 years ago? I don't know, 20 years ago, I guess now. And then, let's see, on this day in our civil liberties history, I was going to keep it short here. We'll just do one. On this day in our civil liberties history, in the year 2007, we saw the full CIA Family Jewels report released. The so-called Family Jewels and internal report on CIA misdeeds, the Central Intelligence Agency Director, James R. Schlesinger, had ordered, compiled on May 7th, 1973, was released on this day. The documents in the Family Jewels report confirm CIA misdeeds that had been known or rumored about for many years. The New York Times exposed CIA spying on Americans on December 23rd, 1974, and the resulting public uproar led to the Senate Church Committee hearings in the Senate and the Pike Committee hearings in the House. And they also uncovered a bunch about MK Ultra we'll talk about. But I don't believe we have ever seen publicly the Pike Committee results, actually. Anyhow, Pike Committee in the House of Representatives exposed all that, along with the Church Committee, which investigated and exposed many abuses by the CIA and other intelligence agencies. This day marked the official release of the report. And then here's our segue to our guest, some good old propaganda from the White House. Patriot Summer locked in.
This exceptional nation was forged and won by some of the bravest, toughest, strongest, most extraordinary people ever to stride the earth. This is our heritage, this is our history, and this is the destiny of America to be the greatest, most incredible country ever to grace the earth.
It's exciting, huh? Hell yeah, America. Our guest now is a veteran, so he has I'm sure how the veterans always have a great take on America. Former veteran, U.S. Air Force, and he worked at Disney Animation and MTV Adult Studio. Paranoid American. How you doing?
It worked. The propaganda worked. I didn't even own a flag. It just popped out of nowhere, and I started waving it. I don't even know how that happened.
A flag just manifest.
Get this out of here. I honestly didn't even know where that came from.
Well, wave it again, because we just it was announced by U.S. Central Command we just bombed Iran again. So there you go.
I mean, here's to turning things around, right? It's all got to start somewhere. I hope the omelet that we're making is going to be a tasty omelet.
U.S. strikes Iran in response to attack on commercial vessel. U.S. Central Command reports.
I had a really based economics teacher in high school, and Most of the time, it just sounded like he was ranting crazy stuff. This is 1999 or like early 2000, and he tells us, hey, every time that you notice, like he knows that we're all seniors, we're all like basically going to be leaving and turning into adults, hopefully. And he was like, if you don't remember anything else I ever taught you in this economics class, every time the country goes into a recession, the way that the United States gets out of recession is it starts a war and then it uses the spoils of war to sort of boost the economy all over again. And that's going to be the only pattern. And I just remember thinking like, what a weirdo that he's saying this like weird stuff to us. And sure enough, man, I think like over time, it seems like that logic has either held up, or I'm at least glad that I had somebody that was spouting that to me as like a young teen.
War's a racket. We have the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, talking about he's running a racketeering operation, a protection racket. We have video of it earlier today. It's quite a statement. So
you were playing the little Trump quote too, the Patriot Summer. And whenever he's like, oh, this is beautiful, people have fought to get here. My favorite Donald Trump quote is, what, you think we don't have killers? Everyone's got killers. You think we're so innocent? Like, that was sort of the very first quote that I think that made a lot of sense before it started turning into, I guess, the Patriot Parade.
Our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, says we negotiate with bombs. So essentially our foreign policy is to bomb you.
I mean, fair point. We probably have enough of them. We need to start getting rid of them. It's like when you find the old yogurt in the back of the fridge and you're like, oof, we got to use this one now. Otherwise it was a waste of money.
We are using up old stockpiles and selling them. And now, I don't know, they're saying we could be coming up short. Let's hear Trump now. They had the big religion. And the funny thing about this whole thing is they had the Religious Liberty Council, because they're going after religiously oppressed peoples here in America. And Zionists on this council kicked off a Catholic lady because she's against genocide. Here's Trump earlier today, where he says, to be a great nation, you have to have religion and you have to have God in your nation. Let's watch this short clip. And then my question is, what God are they talking about? I don't think it's the Jesus of Nazareth God that most people think.
And I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years. Been reading all of those reports. Religion's really, it's going up. If that were stuck, we'd be very, very rich, all of us. It's been great to watch. And as I've said before, to be a great nation, you have to have religion and you have to have God in your nation. If you don't have that, it just doesn't seem to work out, does it? And we have it. We have religion and we have God now. Remember when I first started, 2016, they wanted to take the Christmas out of Christmas. Remember that? We ended that little drive, but we ended a lot of other drives too. From the very beginning of our country, American greatness has been forged by people of faith, and the very first settlers who set foot upon this new world at Jamestown got off their ship, raised up a cross, and bowed down to the Lord in prayer.
I'm curious, do you consider Trump a religious man?
I consider him a dark occultist, yeah.
Because I guess ever since he came on to the sphere outside of The Apprentice and Home Alone, right, but into the political sphere, I don't know if I've ever bought that he was religious at all. And even when he talks about it, like in that clip you just played, it's more about like, this is what they tell me. We've done the research and I've got the report right here. And the report clearly says that you need God and you need religion in order for you to succeed. But he never really has like a personal take on it. It's not a criticism, but it's just that a lot of people will hear him say something like that and then conflate and be like, oh, he's such a strong Christian or he's so pro-Christian. But really, I think he's just describing the same way that a mechanic would be like, yeah, you want to put some synthetic oil in that engine. It's kind of the relationship I feel he has with religion, is like a mechanic telling you to like change your blinker fluid.
He says it's, he said right there, it's like stock going up. We'd all be rich. Oh, man. Here's Dr. Phil at the White House at that same religious liberty conference that they banned the Catholic lady from. Dr. Phil had some words about the psychology of being oppressed for your religion here in America.
On the commission, and what stuck out at me, for me, is how many Americans showed up saying that they were persecuted in healthcare, military, education, different walks of life for living their faith and standing up for their faith. It's not just the liberty to choose which house of worship they want.
I wonder how much of absolutionists any of them are. Like if we were to take the Satanic Temple approach and someone's like, what was that? All religion? Any religion? You know what I mean? Versus a certain list of pre-approved religions, right? Because I guess you could play this for the same crowd in Minnesota, and I'm not sure if the majority of Minnesota, like the, Mogadishu essentially, would also agree that this is like being applied the same across the board. But they're not specifically singling out what the specific religions are that should be more protected than others, I guess.
Well, I could tell you it's Aardvarkism and Christian Zionism, and everybody else can burn in hell.
Are there any specific denomination? This is a greenfield to me a little bit. So if you say Christian Zionism, are there like top 3 denominations that give you away that you're probably a Christian? Like, what's the Jeff Foxworthy? Like, you might be a Christian Zionist if
it's the what the hell is the guy's name? John Hagee. There's a bunch of them though. It's called dispensationalism. Is the theology? Oh, that's a big rabbit hole if you haven't gone down that one.
Well, my understanding is that you can be Zionist and non-religious, or you can be religious, and that it's more of like a political stance, and it's more of like a geographical, that you want the country of Jerusalem or of Israel and, in that specific area to exist, regardless of your outlooks on religion or whether or not you even believe in God.
No, there's a whole conspiracy prophecy going on in the background that they believe by fulfilling it, building the third temple, Solomon's third temple, they believe by fulfilling that prophecy that's made up through the Schofield Bible, that they're going to bring about the Aardvarks believe they're going to bring about their Messiah, and these Christian evangelical Christian Zionists believe they're going to, by going about doing this, standing down, basically praising everything they do, they're going to bring about the return of Jesus Christ.
I mean, who doesn't want Jesus back?
I don't. According to them, they're literally praying for Armageddon and the end of the world.
Well, I wonder, you mentioned Bush in the lead up to this, and the Bush family, and I can't get out of my head that Bush Sr.'s nickname was Magog in Skull and Bones. And Magog is technically 1,000 years after Armageddon. So if you get into like the little season and post-millennial stuff, that takes on a completely different tone as well. Because in that case, they're not necessarily trying to bring on Armageddon. They're trying to bring on the battle of Gog and Magog.
That's what they believe in, but they're trying to engineer it to also fit the genocides they're carrying out as well.
I mean, couldn't this just be an evolution of what people used to consider as Blue Beam? Like, Blue Beam was going to be a fun laser show in the sky where you get to see holographic Jesus and holographic aliens and fireworks and like fun things, and then something bad happens.
But they're going to portray it to believers as being real. So I don't know how fun that would be if you really believe the aliens are coming, or your Messiah, whoever that may be, right? So they're would portray it to the believers as being real.
Oh, 100, yeah. I mean, fun in that.
It'll be fun for you and I because we're skeptics, right? We're skeptics of this stuff, but for the large majority out there, they really believe it because they've been programmed, mind controlled to be looking for this event.
Oh, I think that's part of what Trump was even saying in that quote about, like, you need this to work in any society, in any like successful country. I think that's true. I think that a long time ago, a lot of people in power realized, like, oh, this is this like pre-existing system that helps people, or at least it occupies them. I'll say that better than help. It's going to
It gives
occupy
you
your
hope.
time.
It gives you hope. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the experiment where they try and drown rats, and then if you save a rat right before it drowns, then it'll hold on just a little bit longer, and if you keep doing that, they were able to like they started out giving up in like 7 minutes in, and then they found rats that would stay afloat for like 24 hours or 30 hours or something. That's probably what it is. It's about like how much can we milk you for before you give up and you turn it in, right? Like if we give you a little bit of hope, a little bit of extra bump here and there.
Yeah, I'd call it throwing red meat to the base. But yeah, they have to give you some kind of hope, or they know that they piss the people off bad enough, torches and pitchforks will be outside their door. And so they got to throw you a little bit of hopium, a little bit of red meat every now and again.
Who doesn't like hopium though? I mean, right? It's good. It only sucks after you realize, like, wait a minute, what did you just give me?
Here's Trump saying that he'd be the greatest communist in history earlier today.
Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. I'll be honest, I think I'd be the greatest communist in history. I'd give free rent. Ladies and gentlemen, from now on, you don't have to pay any rent. From now on, anybody wants a house, don't worry about it. Just pick the house you want.
I can just hear dads and grandpas across the country just like reveling in that and repeating that. That's the kind of thing when I go and see my parents. It's the kind of thing that I hear like, oh, did you hear? Oh, what a funny guy. What a great guy. He would have been the best stand-up.
Here's Christian Zionist Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. See, the problem is the Zionists owe their allegiance to Aardvark land, not America. They have dual allegiances, and that's the crux of the problem here. We can't have dual allegiances with any other country because then your allegiance to this country comes into question. Here's Christian Zionist Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, essentially admitting that he's a racketeer because the government is an organized crime syndicate. And here's your Speaker of the House admitting that he's a racketeer running a protection racket.
Say, I am on the ballot, because in a real sense he is. If we were to lose the midterms, heaven forbid, these Democrats, y'all, impeachment's not even the big concern. They will turn every committee of Congress into an investigative body, and they'll go after the president's family, the cabinet, his donors and friends. Half of you in this room will be targeted. I run the protection program. I'll take care of you, okay? We're going to win. We're going to win the midterm, okay? All right?
Dude.
I mean, I feel like this is also a little bit of the frog boiling. Like maybe now as frogs in the boiling pot of water, somebody was like, hey, it's getting a little bit warm in here, right? Like I almost feel, and what they're doing too is I think that there's a little bit more and more being candid about exactly what's happening. Again, like that.
Isn't the apocalypse lifting the veil? Isn't that what it means in Greek, I believe? The apocalypse just means lifting the veil.
Do you think Trump is the one that's going to get credit? I almost feel that he would brag about being the one that ushered in the apocalypse, right? Because it would take somebody important in order to even be that catalyst. So I don't like saying that. I don't necessarily think that would be a deterrent for Trump personally. If you were like, hey, sir, people think that you're ushering in the apocalypse, that's almost like, wow, they think that much of me.
Okay, so the social contract, Gavin Newsom's campaigning on a new social contract. And I was like, what is the old social contract? I never signed a damn contract with the government. Kidding me? The social contract is a foundational concept in political philosophy that explains the legitimacy of government, the origins of society, and the relationship between individuals and the state. It presupposes that people originally exist in a state of nature, a pre-political condition, and voluntarily enter into an implicit or explicit agreement or, quote, contract to form society and establish authority. Did you sign a social contract? I never did.
I think we're still hoping that our fifth graders can read above a third grade level. So any introduction to this, it almost feels like I want to break out my old Jordan Maxwell teachings where they're just creating like maritime law legal jargon that's tricking you into registering yourself as like a state commodity. That's kind of how I feel about these types of contracts.
It says, in exchange for certain rights or freedoms surrendered or regulated, individuals gain the benefits of organized social life, such as security, justice, and cooperation.
I mean, it sounds great. That's as much faith as I would put in communism at this point, right? And we're talking Newsom, so this is California. So one of those rights would not be the right to own a firearm, I assume.
I'm in California. I've lived here my whole life, and Gavin Newsom is he's going to be, by all appearances, the Democrat nominee here for president 2028. And this guy's so damn, well, they're all corrupt, but he's a special breed of corruption here out of California. Let's take a listen to him. He's going after the billionaires now and proposing a new social contract. I never signed the first one, but we're already on to the next one. Let's hear from Gavin Newsom out of California.
It's time for a national billionaires tax and a new social contract. Think about this, just 10% of people in this country own 2/3 of the wealth. A 30-year-old, for the first time in American history, is not doing better than his or her parents. That's a 5-alarm fire. American wages have stood still, and the costs across the spectrum, cost of living, have skyrocketed. The system is fundamentally broken. The federal tax code, the corporate tax code, and the inheritance tax code seem to be written for a different set of Americans. It's time for an economic reset, a true minimum tax on billionaires that, well, ensures the people at the very top pay at least the tax rate their own workers pay. We also should end this tax-free lifestyle loan. This is the gimmick that allows the ultra-wealthy to borrow against their stock portfolios while reporting no taxable income. We also have to rewrite those inheritance rules so that the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in human history, estimated by, well, be $124 trillion that will be changing hands, doesn't lock in a permanent American aristocracy of inherited wealth. Time as well to return to the pre-2017 corporate tax rates, and time to close those offshore loopholes once and for all. And as AI reshapes the country, every American should own a piece of the future it builds through a national public equity fund. Trickle-down economics, it's been a, well, nearly 50-year experiment that has failed. Record corporate profits flowed into stock buybacks and executive compensation. It's time to stop pretending otherwise. We're nearing the 250th anniversary of this country's revolution. The system the American founders built, well, was designed to prevent the concentration of power in a few hands. But we've allowed that concentration to happen anyway, slowly and in plain sight over the course of decades and decades. But we can reverse it. We can reverse it together. It's time to democratize the American economy to save our democracy.
Got my vote, man. We're going to save democracy. Vote for Gavin Greasy Newsom, American California psycho.
If this were a show, and I think it is, and I was in charge, I would have recast whoever they cast to play that guy's role. Like he hadn't studied the lines. He wasn't really delivering it with the same gumption that I would expect for someone that you just said is going to be a presidential candidate. And honestly, it's a little bit rich coming from someone that's in charge of a state in the shape that it is. Although I don't know if I can pick out a state in the country that's like, and here's how you operate. Here's how the government works, because none of them really work, right?
He's talking to an economically illiterate audience to start off. Congress sets fiscal policy in this country, so you need to talk to Congress about changing the tax code. And he never gets to the real fundamental problem is the private central bank, the Federal Reserve, that sets monetary policy in this country. So all taxation's theft, and he's talking to an economically illiterate audience that cheers on tax the rich. That's all well and fine. And you can set minimum wage at $1 million an hour as long as we have the central bank, the Federal Reserve, setting monetary policy, then nothing's going to change in this country. It should go back underneath the Treasury to issue currency and credit per the Constitution, but we can never get that far because we have to have fighting against Republicans trickle down economics.
No arguments here, man. I think one of my OG favorite, it's not even a conspiracy theory, right? But like corruption story is the 1913 secret Jekyll Island meeting. I've been into that little Federal Reserve room. And when like that clip you just played with Newsom talking about policies that we need to change, what we're fighting is something that was enacted over a century ago, and we're seeing the ramifications of it. So anyone that's like, hey, we just do this one quick thing, you know, you kind of like put a little bit of Windex on it and wipe it off, and bing, bang, boom, and like you're all good to go. It's almost like if we wanted to start corrective action, you have to bring up 1913 and you have to say, all right, well, it took 100 years to get here. It's kind of the equivalent of like a weight loss product, right? Like they're selling like a peptide essentially, when maybe the real solution is like a complete rehaul of your entire lifestyle.
Instead of taking synthetic Gila monster venom that you can buy for $50 off at trumprx.gov, yeah, how about stop shoving food in your face? That could work as well.
Do they have a butterbeer flavored peptide, I wonder? The Harry Potter one, right? It's fun, and it's got like little branding and stuff.
We have no long-term safety data on all these people hopped up on Ozempic, so who knows what is even going to happen to them. Many reports of all kind of horrific side effects. But yeah, you talked about what the 2017 something tax. I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. You know what I mean? Like you said, we got to go back to the core root of the problem. We didn't have income tax. We didn't have individual income tax. We did not have a private central bank issuing currency and credit before 1913, before they rigged up the Federal Reserve Act. So if he was serious, then anybody in the position of that has authority of the president, like I keep saying, if Trump was really Mr. America, reform the system, drain the swamp, all that BS, first thing he would do when he took office is take the U.S. Marshals, a bunch of big men with big guns, down to the heads of all these big banks, JP Morgan, Citi, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and the Federal Reserve, and arrest all their asses right now. The first thing you do. But obviously that didn't happen. It's not going to happen because they're all part of this same corrupt system.
Right, and then you'd walk on water, and then he'd turn water into wine, and then he'd feed the masses, and yeah, all of those things. He would have done all of those things if it weren't for just a few pesky little problems. For example, that he's really a Clintonian Democrat, and he's essentially the true apprentice of Roy Cohn, which just makes him like an older generation Jeffrey Epstein, or I guess more accurately, the guy that purchased the old Jeffrey Epstein Black Book. That's kind of how I always envisioned his relationship with Roy Cohn.
What was he doing there in New York? He had a bunch of hotels, perfect setups for all these sting operations to blackmail people.
And I mean, he knows the players, right? Like he has little jabs at them. So not only are they acquaintances, but they're acquaintances in which he knows all their dirty little secrets. And the fact that he's got these little nicknames for everyone, some of them I feel like they're probably based on some deep blackmail, not something that's, you know, exoteric to the rest of the people. Like he's probably doing some sick deep cuts that most people don't even realize. Like we're in the envelopes, right? That's one of my favorite questions.
Well, we're in the envelopes. Yeah. Whose funeral was that? That was that Daddy Bush's funeral?
I think it was.
I think it was at Daddy Bush's funeral, and most people can remember that the mysterious envelopes that got handed to Obama, to the Clintons, and they're looking at it shocked when they open it, right?
It's basically, I think it's their safe word. So he knows everybody's safe word, which means that you know a lot more than that. That
means you're a high-level MK Ultra programmer. What do you think about that? Are these people? I think a lot of these people are MK Ultra victims and abusers.
I
Bill
agree with
Clinton.
that.
Bill Clinton comes to mind right off the top of the head. High level president for 8 years here in this country, and it looks like he's MK Ultra out of his mind.
I remember some real old like pre 9/11 conspiracy videos. I think some of them might have been related to Waco. I believe there was like a whole bunch of like be critical of American government videos that came out right after Waco and then a little bit after Oklahoma City.
Ruby Ridge too, yeah.
Ruby Ridge was maybe to a lesser degree, but like that was like the one of the major catalysts, and then it rolls into Waco and that rolls into Oklahoma. And I think that even McVeigh was one of those guys that was like putting out pamphlets. But anyways, one of those angles is essentially that the government is doing this intentionally, but also there's versions in that video of Bill Clinton where he kind of like phases out. He goes into almost like a trance, and they're asking him like, "Hey, do you want to record more of these promos?" He's like, "We could do this all day," and he just
when he's sitting in the makeup chair getting ready to go on television.
You know the clip that I'm talking about. That's one of my favorite versions of this. But I also think that there's different levels of being like MK Ultra programmed, right? So there's the version where you personally sit down in the chair and they program you. This would be the equivalent of when the military was doing like DDT testing or something, and they would like give it to a specific person. But then there's also the version where they're like, hey, let's just spray a few metric tons or gallons of this over this city and just see what happens. So I think when someone's like, oh, MK Ultra, they might conjure up in their mind that you're getting kidnapped and they bring you to an underground lair under the Denver International Airport, and there's like Freemasons guarding the door and like all like this huge ritual, and that you have to be singled out and special. But really it's like, hey, a car might have driven by and aerosoled a psychedelic into your breathing, and now all of a sudden you are also an MK Ultra victim.
Yeah, we'll get to. We got a lot about MK Ultra. Let's get to this one. Hey, what about 9/11? This plane just hit a tall building there in China, and nothing. It didn't collapse at near free fall speed like Building 7. Shocking.
I hope it doesn't. You know what? Because I kind of like that. New York has something so unique about it that it's almost like being on a ley line where it defies physics and defies any sort of known science. Like where else but New York could something that defies physics happen in such a natural way and everyone accepts it? So I hope another building doesn't fall into its own footprint in free fall, because that would take a little bit of what makes America special now.
Let's watch a short report about a small plane hits Beijing's tallest tower. This was last 24 hours.
According to initial reports, the aircraft struck the CITIC Tower in Beijing's Guimao district, slamming into the iconic skyscraper that dominates the city's central business area. Debris was seen falling from the side of the skyscraper, while thick smoke billowed into the air after the crash, creating dramatic scenes as onlookers watched pieces of the building. The cause of the crash and key details about the aircraft involved were not immediately clear. Authorities have yet to release any firm information on the extent of casualties, so it remains unknown how many people on board or inside the building may have been killed or injured in the incident. Moments after the impact, Beijing police moved quickly to close several roads leading to the tower, sealing off the area both to protect the public and to give emergency crews room to work. Reports from the scene noted that at least one large glass panel on a high floor along the tower side appeared to be missing. Officers were reportedly seen stopping bystanders from taking photos and videos and ushering them away from the site.
Yeah, I mean, they were missing
a plane hit that building and a window fell out. Over here in America. The whole damn complex collapsed.
Well, they were missing 3 key ingredients, and I think it was
terrorists. It was freaking terrorists. I'm gonna tell you, China. It was damn Al-Qaeda terrorists. It was Iran that did it. I'm telling you, Iran attacked you, China.
Their terrorists apparently don't have nanothermite like ours do.
And that secret team of art students, right? Oh man. Oh man! So what about 9/11? Are we ever going to get any? Are we ever going to get any justice on 9/11?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think chronologically, things have to happen in order. So first, we have to get justice on JFK files, which, I mean, until that happens, why are we even talking about 2001? Let's talk about the 1960s, right? Let's go back about 50 years and figure that out first. And then I think the reason why we don't get answers about that, or that we don't get answers about 9/11, are because a lot of the people involved are still alive right now and reaping the benefits of said actions, right? So until everyone is completely wiped off of, the plate and there's no more legacy to worry about, like, you're not, as long as there's a Bush that might potentially be a president later in the future, then none of that can come out. But if the Bushes get completely stomped out of any possible future recognition, unless it's some weird Hunter Biden style prodigal son, like reverse story arc, right? But outside of those like weird 1 in a million scenarios, you kind of can't like let that cat out of the bag, because it's going to affect people that have political sort of credit right now that they are still waiting to spend.
Political capital, yeah. You have some guy, what the hell is his name? There's like a younger Bush, I forget his name, keeps trying to run in Texas. I think he is in Texas government. So there are still Bushes running around out there in government trying to do something.
Right. So now there's an incentive to keep certain records secret forever and ever and ever. And I mean, honestly, it's almost like the court of public opinion is what really matters on some of these. And I think that 9/11 is probably the closest that we've got to a consensus at scale. Like, it's not 100% of people, obviously, but I think that one did capture a lot of people's attention, and it maybe introduced the other one would be the 2019, what do you call it? The miracle.
The bat times, yeah.
The bats and the miracles. Yeah, like that. That's the other big decider, right? So I think everyone in their life has got that. I remember where I was when JFK got shot. I didn't have that one. I didn't even have that for 9/11 because I was in boot camp and they didn't tell us for a couple weeks after it had happened. So then after I get out of boot camp, I'm like, what are you talking about 9/11? What's the big deal about September? What happened? So I didn't get that one, but I did get to go through the miracle bats. So that was fun.
Well, you should feel good that we're still killing Iraqis. So, I mean, they had weapons of mass destruction, didn't they?
Well, I hope we're getting a little bit of mixture in there, not just Iraqis. You got to get some Afghanistan. You got to get some, I guess, just anyone involved. I mean, no Saudis, obviously. You don't want to have any Saudis get hurt. And in fact, speaking of Trump, yeah, like Trump is, one of his quotes was when they found out that MBS was killing off his old reporters or whatever, and they were in the middle of like $150 billion weapons deal, and everyone on both, it's like the first thing that both sides of the aisle agreed on. They were like, yeah, this guy took out his own reporter, we shouldn't be doing business with him. And he's like, I'm not gonna forfeit the economy of our country just because a bad guy did a bad thing. He's like, let's sell him some stuff.
That is the number one goal to sales for the military industrial complex.
I mean, do you or do you not want to get us out of a potential recession/depression, at least for a short term?
No.
I mean,
no.
It does involve selling our enemies weapons that will be used against us in the future, but
we can start a war in 20 years, and when everybody forgets about that and call them all terrorists, and that's a whole new economic boom.
I guess it's kind of like giving your little brother your hand-me-down like boxing gloves, and you just hope that he doesn't beat you up with them one day.
How much did we left? Like $80 billion worth of military equipment in Afghanistan, right? Something like this. So it's almost time to circle back and, I don't know, call those damn terrorist Taliban terrorists again, right? Somebody's hiding there.
But what is money, though, when you literally can print out pallets of, greenbacks and just send them anywhere in the world and not even necessarily have to trace them? Like, what's even the concept of money at that point? And especially if you realize that whatever inflation that might have caused, it's going to take at least 5 to 10 years for all those dollar bills to work their way through all various systems and actually have like a material impact. And in that case, that's going to be someone else's problem to deal with. And that's kind of the infinite formula, right? Like you can do things that are going to affect people in 10 years and not have to worry about the fallout. And that's also, I think, why like the parties shift around, where you're saying like, oh, I guess, you know, the left is good with the Bushes now. Well, yeah, that's because it's essentially the same policies, and
I don't know about the left, but the Democrats are good with them now.
Yeah, fair, it's a fair delineation. Yeah.
Well, they've weaponized the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Okay, let's go into a little bit of police state. What do you police state news here? What do you make of martial law at the reflecting pool? They put up fences, the National Guard's patrolling it, helicopter patrols, and AI guard tower surveillance setups over there as well.
I think that the strongest weapon that we have to fight the government is aside from, you know, Second Amendment, obviously, but the next one is ridicule. And I think that all the people that were taking photos of the new pool that had just been relined and all this treatment, they spent all this money. I think the fact that people were taking images of how botched of a job it is, when this is supposed to be what, you know, Trump's background is, being able to contract people and get jobs done ahead of schedule and under budget and all that. And the fact that it didn't go so great, I think that hurts more than anything. Like he wants to remove this as a blemish. So maybe they're gonna have. I could imagine Trump having like SEAL Team 6 members like covertly going into the bottom of this pool and patching it up in the middle of the night just so no one can see him.
America 250. We celebrate our independence from the tyrannical UK, right? And they have martial law essentially in DC right now.
I mean, but is DC really part of the United States?
It's a weird thing, right? It's a district, and it's its own district, essentially.
I don't know how much you get into like the whole ley line, like a cult founding aspect too, but it really does feel like it's in its own little world.
Didn't they? The geography is a pentagram, right?
Of among many different ones, yeah. There's a pyramid in there. There's a square and compass in there. Depending on how hard you squint your eyes, you can see an owl in there. Those are some of the ones that really got me into caring about DC to begin with, to be honest.
There's a documentary called I want to say DC Sorcery out there. That's some Christian group did, and they go through and break it all down. Yeah, it's very occult architecture and geography there in Washington, D.C.
There's another great series called Riddles in Stone, I think, like a 3-part series.
Yeah, I've seen that one. That's a good one, too. So we're draining the swamp here. We're draining the swamp. Oh, I forgot to ask you, are you paranoid if they're really out to get you?
Yeah, I mean, one of my other favorite quotes is total paranoia is total consciousness.
So we are draining the swamp here. Ex-Trump advisor John Bolton. Oh, it's his ex-advisor. John Bolton pleads guilty to mishandling classified information. Bolton served as both the White House National Security Advisor during Trump's first term. And so we still have to wait for sentencing. I don't think he's going to get any prison time. He pled guilty and he faces a prison sentence of up to 60 months and has agreed to pay $2.25 million in fines. And his sentencing is set for October 28th. So we're draining the swamp. All the corruption's gone. We got mustache warmonger John Bolton, and we bombed Iran today. America 250.
And I think he actually has to pay his bail in Melania coin.
The Trumps rugged all of their crypto investors. We covered that. We covered that here. Report out of the Clash report. This is a crazy one out of the UK. They're cranking up the hardcore tyranny there. It feels like we feel it there. We see it there first, and it's coming here next. UK tried to build person of interest crime prediction machine. It was not accurate. British police and local authorities quietly abandoned a sprawling artificial intelligence network designed to predict crime after internal staff and independent auditors found the risk scoring algorithms produced highly untrustworthy and inaccurate results. But they want to do that here, and it kind of feels like they have pre-crime systems, but they, according to this report out of UK, it's not so accurate.
Because they don't have the precogs yet. You have to have the precog with the neural link so that you have a human component that has some sort of morality or ethics where the computer doesn't. So and I think that might have been the hidden ingredient that doesn't get explained in the Minority Report movie, is that, and story by Philip K. Dick, but essentially is that the reason why the precogs are people is because AI had been like legislated out of being able to make all the decisions on its own.
You need the human element there, huh?
It's more of like a checkbox that you have to mark. It's like, yes, I took the sexual, abuse training or whatever when you join a new job.
Safety training, yeah. Here's
OSHA. It's essentially OSHA.
Some of those old OSHA videos I remember watching are crazy, man. They show like a guy's just working right there and his arm gets chopped off. You're like, what the hell? The guy's just working right there and his arm gets chopped. Like, what? But some of those are crazy, man. Okay, you may find this one interesting. Out of the Department of Homeland Security, 1,200 ancient artifacts have been seized. Let's watch this report about and it's right where you're in Florida, right?
I am.
Homeland Security agents in Tampa Bay, Florida, intercepted thousands of ancient items believed to be stolen from the Eastern Mediterranean, including vases, age-old pottery, and arcane coins. Some have dated back more than 4,000 years. Let's watch this short report about that. I picture the Smithsonian as having one of these Indiana Jones warehouses with just the boxes full of all these ancient artifacts, all this hidden technology that they're keeping from the public. What do you think about that? Do you think such a thing exists?
That was the first thing that came to mind too, is like, you're not allowed to just steal a bunch of valuable artifacts unless you're the Smithsonian, and then you're allowed to do it. And I think the reason is that they act as almost like a seed bank, except instead of giving you real seeds, they take the real ones and then make you artificial versions, or like the Monsanto modified version, and then make sure that they keep those separated. So the same way that they get old artifacts or old bones, they make sure that they have the real one, and then they'll just give you plasters and they'll make all the artificial ones, so that if you ever do get your hands on it, you'll never have the real thing.
You'll never have the real thing. Let's watch this report about these artifacts.
Homeland Security in Tampa has intercepted what may be the largest seizure of ancient antiques in the agency's history. Spectrum Bay News 9's Andy Cole got a look at the priceless evidence and learned why this work matters.
It is definitely old.
From vintage vases to age-old pottery and archaic coins, Homeland Security agents in Tampa are analyzing more than 12,000 items seized by Customs and Border Protection.
A lot of times they'll find illegal narcotics or counterfeit merchandise, whatever the contraband may be. And in this particular case, they found what they believe to be, possibly stolen artifacts.
While they couldn't get specific, Homeland Security officials say the pieces came from the Eastern Mediterranean before being intercepted in the Tampa Bay area. The items, some of which date back to more than 4,000 years ago, are now being authenticated, tagged, and preserved by a mix of in-house and academic partners as investigators trace back where they came from.
What we're interested in is, how did the person who has custody of it at this time, how did they come into custody of it? We've seen in other cases, a lot of times, that ISIS is actually involved with this. They hire people who perpetrate that crime of acquiring or stealing these items and then selling them on the black market, ultimately to receive that funding.
It's unclear if these seized items have terroristic roots, but what you see now is just a small selection of the antiquities. Many more have already been cataloged and boxed away. As for the price, likely in the millions, but according to Homeland Security, they're priceless. All await their final destination, a repatriation back to the cultures that created them.
This is one of the few crimes that we work where we're able to identify, locate, and recover, a precious artifact like you see here today, and return it to the rightful owner. And it's a wrong that was made right. That's a good feeling at the end of the day.
In Tampa, I'm Andy Cole, Spectrum News.
See, they're giving it back to the rightful owners.
I feel that the same way they do that is they'll advertise it in like a Vietnamese newspaper in like the back section in like size 8 font, like, hey, Lebanon, we found a whole bunch of your artifacts. If you want them, contact this number. And if they don't hear within 24 hours, now it's basically belongs to the government. And I love too that he said that they were labeling and categorizing things using some in-house resources. So there's literally somebody got kicked off of the police squad. They couldn't pass the police test, joined ICE, and now they're cataloging ancient 4,000-year-old artifacts as an ICE member. So I don't know. That sounds fun for that guy.
They removed education and age requirements from joining up the Department of Homeland Security. I like how they blamed it on ISIS terrorists.
The what you just mentioned there, like they're like relaxing some of the requirements. It's so counterintuitive to everything that you would expect, though. Like as the population size increases, you would think more competition, higher standards, because there's no more people to weed out. But that same exact thing across the board, like even the military now, right? Like in the military, and this is not a criticism towards people that smoke or have tattoos, but those used to be non-negotiable. If you had a visible tattoo on your arm, you could not join the military. If you failed a drug test, you could not join the military. But now, neither of those are necessarily disqualifiers. And again, it's not a criticism. It doesn't mean anything about the character, but it does show that standards are getting lower as opposed to higher despite population increase, which blows my mind a little bit, only if I try and think about it logically.
Don't try to thinking about things logically is a conspiracy theory.
I kind of agree with that, yeah, because sometimes it's not logic that drives things, it's rhetoric. And if you don't know that, you might be just as dangerous as somebody that does.
Good point. Okay, let's move on to the MK Ultra. Oh, we're almost at the top of that. Let's what all do you want to plug? I got your stuff. You got a bunch of websites. The main
one is just paranoidamerican.com. I've been publishing comic books about occult research and conspiracy theories since like 2006, officially 2012. And I started that when I was doing animation at Disney. The whole inspiration for this was essentially I wanted to do what Disney was having me do as my full-time job. I wanted to do that for myself and about topics that I cared about, not Monsters, Inc. and Goofy and whatever other project they had us working on. So I just decided in all my free time and all my extra money that I was saving to just dump it into making comic books about 9/11 and George Bush and Skull and Bones and Jekyll. The very first comic that I ever made actually is called Time Samplers, and it's about two time travelers inspired by Bill and Ted that go back to 1913 Jekyll Island and basically see for themselves exactly where the American conspiracy started.
You got a lot of stuff. They're all original comic books here.
All original. Yeah, I've been doing this for almost 15 years now. And I've got, I think, 60 different titles. I think over 2,000 pages across all the different books. The last one that we came out with was Illuminati, like a chick. I don't know if you're familiar with Jack Chick or Chick Tracks, but the Illuminati pamphlet, it's basically a little mini comic that breaks down the entire history of the Bavarian Illuminati, their relationship to Rosicrucians and Jesuits and Freemasons. It exposes the actual Illuminati handshakes and secret rituals that they went into. And that one sold, I think, like 5,000 copies pre-ordered. So it was a huge success. So if you're not familiar with that one, I highly recommend checking that one out, or basically any kind of concept that's either conspiratorial or occult related. I think I've covered it. We've even there's a children's book there called The Confounding Conspiracy of Chemtrails, which is sort of inspired by Magic School Bus, only if Miss Frizzle taught you about chemtrails.
Paranoid American. Let me plug my stuff. Everybody go to weaponizednews.com/shop. Get yourself a holograph sticker there. We got the white background sticker. We got the clear sticker. Weaponizednews.com/shop. We got t-shirts, baseball caps, shot glasses, as this shows known to induce heavy bouts of drinking. Weaponizednews.com/shop. We take donations as well. Buy me a coffee, Bitcoin wallet address, Cash App. All the links are in the description below this video. Become a paid subscriber at Weaponized News Substack. We give away everything free over there on the Substack. Show your support for independent reporting and analysis brought to you 5 days a week, broadcasting live, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern time. Weaponized News Substack channel. Become a paid subscriber over there. We're streaming live on Substack. You'll get the full show, a summary of the show, and links to almost everything we talk about. We'll link up Paranoid Americans, paranoidamerican.com there, so you can link through, or just simply go search him on the X or the internet to find his great work. But we'll also provide the link there, so you can link through and check out his great work, paranoidamerican.com. Go to weaponizednews.com/shop and patron the store. We do appreciate all of the subscribers, patrons of the store, and donors. And give us that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. We just went through an hour of hardcore news and analysis without any commercials. I need to change up the commercial. Like most shows are like every 15 minutes or whatever, and reading scripts from freaking to eat Tide Pods or whatever the hell they're trying to sell you, some kind of nutritional supplements. We don't do any of that here at Weaponized News. Pray and fast and subscribe to Weaponized News Substack. And with that, welcome back to the second half of Weaponized News on this Friday, June 26, 2026 edition with Paranoid American. Thank you for joining us. Okay, let's try to do it and see if we can't not get censored here. They're bringing up MK Ultra in the Congress. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, I believe she's out of Florida, right? Yeah, Florida's 13th district. There's MK Ultra hearings scheduled for next Tuesday in the Congress. There it is. Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets presents MK Ultra hearing. And you can see right there, next Tuesday, 10 a.m. it begins. What do we make of this?
This is great news. So now we actually have some sort of a timetable on how long it takes the government to release information that was previously discovered and accidentally leaked and found. But it's 70 years. So if the government does something bad, then the minimum amount of time it's going to take for any acknowledgement or anyone in Congress to care about it is roughly 70 years. And I realize the church hearings was the original one. I think that was like 1974. So, okay, so maybe it was 20 years between MK Ultra started and the church hearings. And then it took another 50 years in order for anyone to actually care about what they talked about in the church hearings, aside from the heart attack gun that made the round on the news and was probably in like some of your favorite murder dramas or anything, right? But the actual information contained in MK Ultra, no, I guess maybe I'm being optimistic. Maybe still no one really cares about it.
There's also the Pike Committee that ran parallel with the Church Committee, and they never made those findings publicly available. So they could just declassify the Pike Committee hearing information. And that would blow everybody's mind. And that was actually the Church and Pike Committee's 1975 Year of Intelligence.
My understanding, though, about MK Ultra is that even what we did get recovered through the church hearings, it was essentially a small collection of boxes that were mostly financial documentation. We didn't necessarily have all of the different field reports and all of the actual like victims' names or any of the actual experiment results. A lot of it was just, we paid this guy at this, institution this amount of money to do this study, and you don't get a lot of the details outside of that. So part of me always wonders, were these just the thing, like they knew something was gonna leak at some point, so let's just give them the receipts, but none of the actual content.
LSD assassination plots, domestic spying. It just goes on and on.
Well, there was 149 sub-projects, and so if you want to do some like heavy hitters, there was also a Yoruba West African witch doctor study, because Sidney Gottlieb, the guy that was in charge of the MK Ultra program, he was, first of all, he lived in a log cabin with no electricity, and he raised goats and didn't wear shoes and stuff. He's kind of a wild guy, but he was also known as the Black Sorcerer and the Dirty Trickster, and he specialized in poison. That was actually how he got his entrance into the CIA, was being a poison specialist. And he had a unique fascination about all sorts of witch doctor and voodoo spells and witchcraft and all the different concoctions that they made. And he made that a big part of his personal, the sub projects that he made sure got funded.
I got this off your X. Let's put this up there. You posted this about the Army PSYOPs manual. Motion pictures most children and a high percentage of adults accept without questions, presumably factual information presented in film. Psychological Operations Manual, Army FM 33-1, page 10-4.
And let's just make sure that this is not to be used by Hollywood. That would only be in wartime purposes. You wouldn't want to just be influencing people during peacetime, especially not domestic citizens of your own country.
They repealed the, Smith-Mundt Act that allegedly said it's against the law to propagandize the American people, right? But we know they've been doing it the entire time. They just, under the Obama administration, just took that safety guard off, and so now it's full-on mind control.
I mean, I think that it's always been the case. It's just a little bit of less red tape, because those types of laws and restrictions, they can be applied selectively, right? Find a movie or an era where we didn't have propaganda in film. I mean, how one of Disney's first big movies that they worked with the U.S. military on, it was called Victory by Air Power, and it was essentially propaganda films. That was what a lot of Disney's work for the military was in the 1940s and afterwards.
That statement brings to mind the whole point of media films is to put your mind in a state of suspended disbelief, and they can insert ideas that way a lot more efficiently than if your guard's up, say, watching television news where you may be skeptical. In a film, your guard is down, and that's where they slip in these subliminal ideas through the back door.
So I worked at Disney for 10 years, and because of that, long story short, I ended up doing a podcast called Occult Disney that I've been doing for, I think, 3 or 4 years now. And we basically watch every single full-length theatrical Disney animation that's kind of ever come out. And over time, we've been putting together this sort of theory that I've named the Disney proxy, or maybe I read it somewhere, I don't know. But the Disney proxy is that, except they figured out right around Bambi, I think, that they can cause trauma to the viewer, and then while the viewer, because I guess, imagine this, right?
And isn't that part of MK Ultra, trauma-based mind control?
It is, and honestly, Disney was working with the CIA during the exact same time period. There are MK Ultra documents that mention things like Alice in Wonderland programming and other like Disney references. Although I haven't, as much as I've tried, I haven't found a direct connection outside of the fact that when Walt Disney built Disney World, he contracted ex-CIA. One of the main guys was William Wild Bill Donovan, who was in charge of Camp X, and he was like a huge player in the lead up to MK Ultra. So, but anyways, the theory here, imagine that you're a housemaker, like you're single dad and you're working at home, and the kid just needs to be entertained while you go and do taxes or whatever adult things that you have to do that's going to be boring, they don't want to be involved in. So you sit them down in front of a Disney movie and you leave the room. And the first thing that happens in a lot of these Disney movies is the parents or the caregiver gets taken out, they die, they get murdered, or the kid gets kidnapped. Something happens where the kid's on their own now. And if you imagine this scenario where dad's in the other room, he's doing taxes, and you're this entranced 7 to 9 year old and you're watching a Disney movie, if you get kidnapped in the movie, if the protagonist gets out, like you just got kidnapped. And if, depending on how young you are, this might literally be the first time your little brain, your human brain, is going through these thoughts of like, what happens if I did get kidnapped? What happens if mommy and daddy did die? So even though nothing's happening to you, the fact you're thinking about, oh, what if mommy can die? Wow, that's pretty traumatic. So you're in this state. And the very first thing that happens after you get traumatized at a Disney movie is they introduce the little sidekick that's going to be your new buddy, the one that's going to get you out of this jam. So if you take Bambi as the example, then Thumper comes along, and Thumper's the savior to Bambi after Bambi loses, the mom. And then what happens is that Thumper's going to be on the keychains and the little push pops and the cell phone charms and like all of the different marketing material that you're going to go and see at like Walmart or whatever for the rest of your life. So now every time you see that little sidekick, it reminds you of that time that Thumper
triggers that
you.
memory. Yeah.
It's NLP anchoring essentially, but you do it to 7-year-olds. And if you add that extra level of trauma, then it sinks a little bit deeper. The anchor does.
So are they aware, the people working on the animation, that their stories are high level MK Ultra trauma based mind control?
I don't know if you would put it that way, because calling it MK Ultra mind control is like saying, oh, so it's like 1950s military strategy. I mean, maybe.
To give us a point of reference for the trauma based mind control.
You mean within the MK Ultra aspect? So like the Dr. Ewan Cameron aspect, right? Where he would dose you with LSD and then make you listen to either positive or negative commands on repeat, like psychic driving style, right? And that would induce people into comas, and it would actually work and give you straight up amnesia. But I don't think that on a broad level that's what they're trying to do. They just want you to buy stuff. They want you to spend more money, go to Disney World more often, basically spur the economy. So if the MK Ultra programming doesn't necessarily have to turn you into a killer and then immediately have amnesia, that would take a high level of focused doctors sitting there and hypnotists and like monitoring you and hand selecting you. But if I just want to make sure that people are occupied, entertained, and spurring the economy, you can still use quote unquote like MK Ultra practices, because all MK Ultra was a study on how to influence the human brain. So any way that kind of gets out, I mean, maybe the military funded it originally, but now everyone's using it.
Now everyone's using it. Wow.
And I think it's more like, now that you know, like here's another example. I don't know how familiar you are with NLP and like the original founders and Bander and Grinder and all
they
the
talked about neuro-linguistic programming in the Epstein files. I forget, it was Epstein and someone were corresponding about using NLP.
So it's just like a cousin of hypnosis, essentially. It's a slightly more casual form of hypnosis where you're doing it without putting someone into a trance, but it's still all about studying suggestibility. But the reason I bring it up is that it's not like NLP invented new techniques. What it was a study on people that had natural charisma. Like, how does this guy have this charisma? And if they sat down and looked at you like a lab rat and just took, notes nonstop, and this was like, what makes a Jim Jones, right? Like, what is it about the way that he speaks, the words that he says, the way that he says them? And if you can boil that down into a science, now you can teach that science to your field agent or to your marketing guy or to your HR person or whatever. You can teach those skills. And it's kind of, I would equate it to kind of like a hypnosis. So is that MK Ultra? Is that NLP? Or is it just you're learning techniques that some people have innately, but you're basically training yourself in that, right? Like some people are just naturals at all sorts of hobbies and skill sets, but then you might have to train to do the exact same thing that someone has natural skill at. That's kind of how I see MK Ultra.
Let's start here. Did George Bush die here? Let's watch this clip. 1992, George Bush like chokes or something. They said it was a stomach flu. Like, what happened here? I believe that was in Japan. Did George Bush die there? Like, what is going on there?
Did you just show a clip from The Naked Gun? I feel like you did.
No, that's not the Naked Gun.
They did. I know The Naked Gun did a spoof on that exact moment, though.
Mm.
And was that a pig? There was just like randomly a pig there, right? Okay, yeah, I saw that.
What do we make of that?
Did he die? Did he die right then? I don't know. It almost it reminds me a little bit of the Hillary Clinton getting dragged into the van.
Oh yeah, same kind of thing. Hillary's admitted she has a body double. I don't know. Was that the body double? Was that the real Bush? They admit they have the masks too, right? They had the masks for years.
I mean, I would be disappointed if they didn't have body doubles and masks and do all of these sort of spycraft techniques, because otherwise, what are we even doing here? If we don't have the leaders of the best country on the planet in history using every single tool that's been given to us by Jesus Christ himself, then it's almost like spitting in the face of him, no?
Agreed. What about this about skull and bones? I got this right from your ex, pineal gland.
Okay, this is AI. I'm pretty sure what you're about to show. I just need to disclose that.
You think this is AI?
It depends on which one you're showing.
This one?
Yeah. No, 100% AI.
We'll skip that one then.
That I know because I'm the one that made that one, but it's very convincing. But it was the original clip was George Bush holding up a bag of cocaine, and he said that someone bought this right across the street from the White House this afternoon or whatever. You've probably seen that clip before. So that I did that, but it was about the obscene right, where their skull and bones is rumored to eat a live human pineal gland, or in some versions, it's an adrenal gland, depending on what your source is.
And the one where he's drumming on the human skulls, that's AI too. Huh?
That's yeah. I'm afraid to say that one's AI too. That's not actual.
But the point, but explain the point you're making with that.
Well, the point is that they actually do collect skulls.
And you said in the post, you said they have to show you revelation of the method frees them from karmic debt. You want to explain that a little bit?
So revelation of the method, as I understand it, it's a way to, like I said, free yourself from karmic debt. Here's an example. If I was to say, hey, if you keep standing where you're standing right now, I'm going to punch you. And if I count to 3 and then I punch you, then there's somehow less karmic debt because I announced what my actions were going to be. And then that basically, you are now making a decision that you are inviting me to punch you if you don't move. I know. I mean, that's it sounds like a sloppy analogy, but I think it's a great analogy because that's sort of how it's enacted. It's like, I'm going to victimize you. I'm going to assault you or batter you or do something horrific to you or your country or your family or whatever, fill in the blank. I'm going to do this horrific thing. And if you don't stop me, then it means that you want me to do it, or it means that I'm allowed to do it. So the whole revelation of the method is like, hey, if I show you what I'm going to do and I tell you that I'm going to do it, then I don't go to hell or whatever. You know, I don't have to pay some sort of karmic debt because both of us were in on it. You're just as guilty as I am.
Because I told you I'm going to punch you and you didn't block it and you took a clean shot. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different analogies for that, but that's the one that it makes the most sense to me for revelation of the method. Now, in this case, it's like if they give just enough hints, if for example, if it gets out that his name was, or his dad's name was Magog, right? Just having that out is enough to be like, well, I left a breadcrumb, and if people don't put together 1 and 1 and find out that 1 and 1 is 2, then technically, like, I did the revelation of the method, so I'm still free of any karmic debt, but you still have to deal with all the ramifications of it for being a rube, essentially.
The cremation of care ceremony there at Bohemian Grove.
So, yeah, maybe the fact that got exposed so many times, Executive Review got their hands on some of it. I think Time Magazine had an expose. William Domhoff wrote an expose in like the 1970s. So the cremation of care ritual has been around since the late 1800s, I believe. So I think that maybe that quote unquote getting leaked to the public, maybe that is a form of revelation of the method where it's like, hey, we're getting naked and we're worshiping these ancient pagan gods in the middle of the woods during summer solstice. So you can't act like you're surprised when we usher in the apocalypse and the battle of Gog and Magog.
You can't act surprised when we bomb Iran.
I mean, but seriously, and the whole like Lakeside Talks thing, where they basically probably told them about the war in Iran 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure. Okay, one of your comics, I believe, here on your X, Project Monarch. This is some dark stuff, and you say it's based on Fritz Springmeier's and Too Dark for Stranger Things. This is pretty dark. You want to explain this a little bit?
This is probably the darkest page in all of the comics that I've made so far.
Not dark enough for me. All right, I want darker.
I mean, we can go darker. I've got ones that I haven't produced yet, but this one is PG-13 or maybe even just PG. I'm not really. I guess it depends. So, Monarch is a rumored sub project of MK Ultra, or like a side project, which started.
How many sub projects? Like 140 that we know about. Something
149
like
in the official MK Ultra Church committee hearings, but then you've also got all
and there's spin-offs of those spin-offs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like Delta and Naomi and Often and Derby Hat and Third Chance. The names of the projects would change based on the country it was operating in, and based on a whole bunch of other sort of like almost arbitrary criteria. So Monarch is one that, as far as I know, is not documented in any like FOIA request or any government documentation, right? This one is mainly based on rumors and lore and like
whistleblowers and victims' testimony, right?
Exactly, yeah. Whistleblower and victim testimony. And I think it first started getting brought up in the late 80s or maybe very early 90s. So this page describes what Fritz Springmeier is writing about in his How to Create an Undetectable Illuminati Mind Control Slave. I believe that's the full name of that book. It was him and Cisco Wheeler. And what they're talking about is that in utero, there's this initial dose of DMT. And this actually comes from a secondary source outside of Springmeier that I kind of added in here as like a montage. But once the fetus has consciousness, then while it's in utero, so we were talking about trauma-based programming before with like Disney, right? Well, you can't avoid trauma. Like just living a life means that you're going to have trauma. And the first major trauma that every single human being has, it's birth. It's being removed from the warm amniotic fluid and hitting the cold air and getting spanked, and now you're crying, and now there's bright lights. You know, that is an incredibly traumatic experience, and for most people, it's the very first traumatic experience. But in Project Monarch, since the whole premise is conditioning the human brain to realize that something else is controlling it, you want to remove any sort of agency. So one of those methods is that they actually pierce the they pierce the side of the child with an amniocentesis needle, so that the programmer or this Monarch program, they're the first ones that get to induce that trauma. You don't have to wait for childbirth. And then usually they'll also do like a cesarean section, so they'll deliver early, which again is kind of showing that these programmers or whoever's operating the system have more control over your own birth than nature does, right? So that's sort of the concept, and that the top two aspects of that. The darkest part is that the next step is that after the child is born, it gets nurtured, just so it develops a love and bond connection with its programmer, and then they get put in these electrified cages called the woodpecker grid. Again, this is all from Fritz Springmeier, that are electrocuted at random intervals so that you can't anticipate when it's going to shock you next. And after you're in there for, I think, like 72 hours, most of the children's brains will just accept that they have no control, they can't predict, so they just give up, and they'll just stop acting like a normal developing child would. And then at that moment, their caregiver is supposed to come and, quote, save them from this woodpecker grid, from this uncertainty. And in that exact moment, the programmer and their caregiver does like the most unspeakable thing that you could imagine happening to a kid, essentially. And what this does is he describes it as forcing the human brain to divide by zero. It takes, oh, here's my savior. Here's the person, the only person that I'm aware of that loves me and cares for me is going to save me. And when they come and save you from this horrible situation, and then they do something even worse than what was previously happening to you, then the human brain is like, okay, I'm ready to split into multiple sections now. And that like isolated, compartmentalized thinking is allegedly where they stick the assassin programming and the sex beta kitten programming and all of that. But it's almost like a formula, like here's how you create that split personality to begin with.
To break the human mind and create these different sub-personality personas.
That's the whole point, yeah, is to traumatize someone so much that their brain gives up on trying to process normal reality and creates an entirely new persona that can handle whatever that trauma is. So now at the very least, you've got two different personalities. And then if you can just repeat that process and turn a dial here and inject a little bit of drug there, then maybe instead of two personalities, you can get 7 or 30 or 100 or whoever knows. And each one of those personalities can be taught different information and learn different skills. I mean, Born Identity is sort of like a romanticized version of this, where he just is in a cafe and he's like, I don't know why I know, you know, exactly where everyone's standing in this room, and that if I had to kill everyone in this room, I would know exactly how to do it. Like those kind of thoughts. That's essentially what this mind control programming is supposed to result in.
Because he had that assassin program as one of his personas, but he was not acting under that persona, but it was still there in the back of his mind.
Yeah, and again, it's a romantic version where he can tap into it and he can use it for self-empowerment and fight back against the system. And I think it's more of a disposable one-off thing. It's more of like a Sirhan thing. Like once you've done the thing that you were trained to do, who cares if you're in jail or killed or whatever? Like that was the only thing that you were made to do.
They would rather have you killed, but yeah, maybe they want him hanging around. Even Bobby Kennedy Jr. said Sirhan didn't kill Bobby Kennedy, right?
There's some compelling evidence that
his own son says it. So, I mean,
on how deep you want to go in that rabbit hole, but even if you were to analyze the trajectory in which Sirhan was firing, those shots were likely not making the contact. And I believe
he was there with a gun and pulled the trigger, but he didn't actually.
Correct. Yeah, that's
his bullets are not what caused the death.
So, I mean, and the same could possibly be said about Lee Harvey Oswald, too, depending on what your source on that. Speaking of the Bush family,
a lone gunman, a lone wolf nut.
That is probably one of the two stories that always make me the most paranoid and suspicious. One is the lone wolf story when a tragedy happens, and the other one is the rags to riches story. Both of those, I'm immediately suspicious, and I want to know a little bit more of the backstory.
Zuckerberg built Facebook in his freaking college dorm. Okay.
It had nothing to do with LifeLog.
Nope, nothing to do with that at all.
And honestly, what a perfect person to run that division of whatever program that is, because Zuckerberg, if you've read biography or even seen like the Social Network movie or just, read any background on him, when he was putting Facebook together, there was no ethics or morality. It was the opposite of that. It was like, how can I use this to exploit people and get?
He was laughing, and he's like, "These fools give me their data free," and laughing about it.
He had stronger words for us than that, but yeah, these fools. He said something, and I think that he showed his hand early, and that was like, he's our guy. Like he's not gonna ask any.
He's a psychopath.
Essentially, I mean, I think that the way our system currently works is not a dig on capitalism necessarily, but like our system breeds psychopaths. Like the better you're at not really caring and truly making, and I don't saying this. And
they're trying to sell right now having empathy as some kind of a negative trait.
I believe that, but I mean, I think it can be. I think empathy has already been weaponized to where some people are so empathetic that they can't even get out of their own way. And that's kind of like the useful idiot sort of formula, right? That if you can make someone so filled with empathy that they will vote against their own their own self-interests just because they have so much empathy for the person. This is sort of like, I feel bad that my kid didn't get stabbed at a track meet. Like maybe I don't live in a diverse enough area.
That's the extreme, but yeah.
That's the extreme version of empathy. Yeah, weaponized empathy.
Weaponized empathy.
Like how privileged are you that none of your family members have ever been even attempted murder, let alone murdered?
Very true. Very true. Okay, another one of your expos here. I like this one. They're called Free Masons. And founders, because they found old buildings and claimed them as their own, literally free dash masonry. Explain that. But so is a squatter a free mason because they found it?
I guess, yeah, that would fit that same sort of description. This is a little bit tongue-in-cheek with old world theories. I don't know how familiar you are with old world theories as well, but a lot of them state, like, for example, DC, that some of the buildings in DC, like the Scottish Rite Temple, that actually existed maybe even pre-Columbian, that when the original explorers came to the United States, that they had all of these like ancient Roman style buildings, and that they rewrote the history books to make it sound like they were built by, the new Americans moving over. But in reality, that had always been there. But that would be a dangerous narrative to, whatever story that was being spun, that this new world had just been discovered, uninhabited by any other civilized, white man before.
How can we prove one way or another?
I don't know if you can, man. Because the deeper you get into the ancient world, old world history stuff, Tartaria is another one of these angles. At a certain point, you'll encounter this premise of, well, if I didn't see it happen, I don't believe it. And, if I don't see a photo of it, I don't believe it. Or anything that happened before like 1940. Everyone has different dates when their cutoff is, but it's like if it happened before 1940, I don't believe anything they say. I'm definitely not that much of an extremist. I feel like if anything, I probably toe the company line more than that, where I do believe in like they did build a lot of these buildings in like the early 1900s and late 1800s. I don't think that the old world, but I love that particular theory. And there's an even more extreme version of this where the America was the original continent. This is where the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. It was all written from the perspective of Americas and not of Europe or the Middle East.
Wow, that's something to think about. I'm going to your post here. You say Freemason funded project in 1975, which gave meth to monkeys.
Yeah. So for the Freemason, so I can't remember if this one was a Scottish Rite one or not, but
yeah, it says in the your post, it says the Scottish Rite's support of research on nature and causes of schizophrenia began in 1934.
That's
with the appropriation of $15,000 had totaled over $5 million by the end of its first 40 years of operation.
And that was just the schizophrenia research. And when they originally funded it, it was under this umbrella term called dementia praecox, which is essentially early onset dementia, which in another way of saying that, if grandpa starts acting weird, but he's like 80, then people are just like, yeah, you know, he's old, he's got dementia. And there's not necessarily, I mean, there's treatment and therapy and stuff. But if that happened in the 1800s, it's just like, suck it up. You know, grandpa's acting crazy. That's what happens to grandpas. But if that happens to your 20-year-old son, that's your progeny, or, you know, 30, and you're too old and your wife's too old to procreate anymore. And this is supposed to be the kid that you're handing over the keys of the kingdom. Like, if this is going to be your Bush legacy, he's supposed to run for president, and comes down with or starts acting like he's got dementia. Well, now there's a problem because he's not 80 years old, and now there's no one to pass the legacy down to. So the elites, essentially, the people with money and power and resources, collectively decided, like, we need to solve this problem because it's affecting us, the non-poors. And when something affects the non-poors, well, like, now it's time to invest money, time, and research into this. So what the Scottish Rite did, I think, in the 1930s, is they created this initiative. This was the northern jurisdiction, I believe. And they basically said, hey, all the money that we're raising after we fund, you know, whatever wars that we've got to fund going on, but whatever money's left over, let's find an initiative to put all this money towards. And they determined that they should put it towards dementia praecox. And that immediately gave funding to all sorts of dementia and schizophrenia research that didn't exist prior to that. And the main reason is because there's really no financial incentive to solve any of these problems. And any of the drugs that they typically find are not as easy to patent. So this was just something that was going to take too long, too much money for the commercial world to do. So the Scottish Rite effectively said, well, we're going to take the burden of looking into schizophrenia and dementia on. And they started in the 1930s, and it only got stronger and stronger all the way through the 1970s, I believe. But there's, funny enough, MK Ultra right in the middle of that. They're also like, hey, we're also interested in how the brain works and how to maybe not solve schizophrenia, but maybe cause schizophrenia. But the research was overlapping. So right around the 1950s and the 1960s, you see the Scottish Rite funding less of this and going more into like Rockefeller Foundation, Josiah Macy Foundation, a lot of sort of adjacent groups that weren't directly tied to the Freemasons.
Can we say you're a Freemason, right? Full disclosure?
Yeah, 32nd degree. I haven't gotten to the killing the baby part yet to get to the 33rd.
What does the 33 mean? Why are they always putting 33 out there in headlines and news stories?
Who you ask. My favorite answer is Jordan Maxwell, as it usually is. And Jordan Maxwell, I don't know if this is accurate, but this is what he said multiple times, is that when the sun, it's all astrotheology, and that when the sun leaves one house of the zodiac and enters another, it enters at 30 degrees and it exits at 33 degrees. That was his big example of why there were 33 degrees. The more complicated answer is there was way more than 33 degrees, and that's what Albert Pike helped settle everything on. And that's the whole concept of order out of chaos, that there were all of these different degrees depending on what city you lived in and what, you know, area and the actual education of the Masons. in your particular area might be conferring completely different degrees. So they standardized that with the Scottish Rite and came up with the 33-degree system.
But there's secret higher ones, right? Orders.
I mean, well, for example, there's the Rite of Memphis Mizraim, which is closer to like the Egyptian roots. And that one, I believe, goes up to like degree number 99. But usually the company line there is that once you get to the 3rd degree, nothing necessarily goes higher. And the best analogy that I've heard, it's like if you join the Cub Scouts, right? There's Cub Scouts and there's Whippoorwills and there's like Eagle Scout, and those are the different sort of stages, right? That's when you're actually advancing. I think I don't remember how it went. I never joined, but I think like Eagle Scout is higher than Cub Scout, for example. But once you get to one of those degrees, like imagine those are like the 3 degrees, all the other degrees after that are like getting your merit badges. So just because you're a Cub Scout with 20 merit badges doesn't mean that you're necessarily like a higher ranking Cub Scout than the guy next to you that's only got 5 merit badges. It just means that he's not as extracurricular as you are. So that's like the description of that, you know, from degree 4 to 32, those are all just merit badges that you're adding onto your sash, and none of those are actually on like climbing a ladder. 33 is slightly different because 33 is an honorary degree. It's not one that you just naturally evolve into. It's one that you actually have to either donate a significant amount of money to, usually Masonic charities, or you become famous in your own right, and then the Masons want to kind of latch on to your popularity. So, for example, before Kramer got canceled in the early 2000s because he had a spicy stand-up crash out, but he was a Scottish Rite member, and just the fact that he became famous for being Kramer on the show Seinfeld, they made him a 33rd degree, because then they can be like, hey, we've got famous actors that are 33rd degrees, and they can use that as a promotional tool.
Don't they make every president 33rd degree, like automatic?
So like
honorary
Correct.
degree, right?
Biden got that. I believe he got honorary.
I think every president has very quietly.
And I don't think you can reject it. It's almost like if the Mormons decide they're going to baptize you, like you can say no, but they're still going to do it. Like you're still going to be baptized in their little, fountain in the basement. So I feel like there's something similar to that going on, but most presidents wouldn't have an issue taking the little photo with all the guys in the aprons on. It's like, it's almost an American tradition. And one of this is sort of a fun thought experiment, but I also like to post on social media sometimes. Name one good things the Freemasons have ever done, except for founding the country of America.
Okay, what one thing?
Well, I mean, name one good thing they've ever done aside from founding our country. Meaning that, like, even with all of the rumors and all of the supposition of what Masons have done, William Morgan Affair, probably the better example.
Well, they built a bunch. They are actually Masons that built a bunch of stuff, right?
Well, not after the 1400s or
not
so.
After 1400s?
I think that, so there was.
Why do they get so proud about laying the cornerstone on all these different buildings?
Because that is literally the only connection that Masons have to their past of operative Masons. So you've got operative Masons are actual ones doing the work, the ones making the cathedrals and baking knowledge into the cathedrals, and then speculative Masons. And the shorts version of this is that it was originally all operative Mason, real Masons, and in order to make sure that you paid the master Mason more than the apprentice, they would give you a secret handshake and give you a little password, and that way you're like, oh, you get the $300 check instead of the $50 check or whatever it was, right? So that actually became coveted knowledge, and someone's like, hey, Jim over here is telling everyone the Master Mason password, like you would get murdered because you're taking food out of people's mouths and you're destroying this entire system. So this goes on long enough that it becomes established, and they start putting all sorts of ritual and ceremony around it. And it also turns into one of the very first like insurance packages that if you're a Mason and you die, Well, your widow and your son, the widow's son, they're going to be taken care of by the lodge. And that really didn't happen in a organized fashion outside of like if you just had a really strong community. Here's like a way that you can do that in like a standard that goes across city boundaries and countries. Well, anyways, after they do this for long enough and they've got fancy little titles and cool little degrees, you'd have like a prince or a king like, hey, cool little club you got there. I've heard good things about it. Can I join? And they're looking around. They're like, this guy's got, like soft hands. Like he's not going to be a mate. What's he going to put brick down? He's going to help us build the cathedral. He's a liability. We can't have him anywhere around here. So then it's like, hey, you can actually come to our meetings and you can be part of it, but you're not actually going to be doing any masonry. You're going to be a speculative mason, just kind of in theory and in practice. And then at a long enough timeline, the rich people that were joining took over and supplanted all of the actual masons, right? Imagine a bunch of white collar guys slowly replacing all the blue collar guys. That's kind of what happened. So now when you've got these bricklaying foundations and the cornerstone foundations, usually it's going to be a school or maybe a bank or usually some kind of a public government thing. And it's twofold. One is that it gives you another reason to get pictures and PR and everything. And you also have like a nice little plaque that's like this building was founded versus you just put out a newsletter that's like, hey, the school opened on Saturday. So it gives the school or the bank or the facility a reason to make like a big fanfare about this thing they just spent tens of millions of dollars on possibly. But for the Masons, it's the only thing that they have left to be like, see, we still do Mason type stuff every once in a while. If you took those cornerstone ceremonies away from Masons, they now have no more connection to operative Masonry.
So I see you post here about devil worship. Do the Masons worship Lucifer or the devil?
I think it's, I objectively.
And what's the difference between Lucifer and the devil? Or
I guess
Satan?
if you're saying devil and Satan, then you're automatically giving it a biblical context. If you say Lucifer, you could mean like a perennial. You could mean Promethean. You could mean any sort of like knowledge seeking philosophy where it's not necessarily like a religion. But I mean, there are people that have been sworn into Masonry using like a book of lies or something, or like a Crowleyan book, right? I think like a Thelema book. So technically, I feel that would, for the type of person that would ask, like, are there any Masons that, are Satan worshipers or Luciferians? I think that if you got inducted in using a book by Crowley, that would probably constitute as a yes. But I mean, you'd be splitting hairs to figure out the real answer to that question.
Do you ever get blowback or pushback from your lodge for your public speaking about it?
No, I think they're hurting for money so bad that it doesn't really matter. As long as you pay your dues, they don't necessarily care. But the other thing too that really caught me off guard is that when I first joined to early 2000s, I think like 2005, 2006, and I was honestly, I thought I was like infiltrating and I was gonna, I was gonna find all the secrets and I was gonna reveal all the secrets and I don't care who's gonna find out. Like I'm gonna tear this thing wide open. And one of the first brothers that I met in lodge, he was telling me how like, hey, that this lodge meeting is basically magic, right? This is like a magic ritual that everyone is participating in. And then someone else got offended by that. They were like, I'm a Christian, I would never, so like even within this one localized lodge, there was disagreement over.
How do Christians, Freemasons square that circle?
Because they use the Bible for a lot of it. A lot of the stories, a lot of the rituals derived entirely from the Bible. And in fact, there's even if you go through the 3 steps of Blue Lodge, you can even join the York Rite. And the York Rite is basically considered as like Christian mystic Freemasonry. They even have a Knights Templar degree where you have to swear to like defend the honor of Jesus, or I don't know what the actual oath is. I didn't become a York Rite Mason, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. The only thing that would be incompatible with most Masons and Christianity would be if you're a Catholic, because the Vatican specifically, I think like at least 3 different popes have said you're not allowed to be a Freemason. And then there's also some evangelist Protestant sort of denominations that see Freemasonry as like an extension of the Vatican, ironically.
It's back to the whole dual citizen, dual allegiance thing, right? You can only serve one master.
Correct. Yeah, that's supposed to be what it is. But one of the oaths, it's anyone. So I guess if you were a president and you were a Freemason, that might be cause for concern, because technically you would have to favor Freemasons over non-Freemasons. I mean, one of the most famous
do you
stories,
get a leg up in life by flashing your Mason card? Have you been able to do things that have more opportunities presented to you than other Joe Blow comic book animators?
So I mean, in the space that I'm in, I think maybe the opposite. I get so people that are like business socialite Freemasons that might give you like a job opportunity or like some in somewhere. But the type of content that I cover is not as conducive. It's not like, oh yeah, let's talk about, what are you doing? Oh, you publish Freemason secrets in comic form? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm on the same page. But then for my audience, there's sometimes are coming in highly critical of Freemasons and then find out that I'm a Freemason, and then that almost works against me in some cases. It never comes up in public discourse. I never advertise it. I don't wear hats or shirts. I don't have a sticker on my car. You would never know it unless I told you. And the main reason that it even comes up is because maybe at one point someone thought they had like outed me, and I just feel bad if I go on a show and someone's badmouth, because that's what's happened a few times. Someone's just like badmouth Masons, man, they're eating babies, they're worshiping Satan and blah, 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 blah. And then after 2 hours, and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a Mason, or you find out after the fact. I don't want anyone to feel like slighted or like I was being sneaky or I infiltrated. So long answer of saying, no, I don't think I get a leg up. Although if I was in any other industry doing anything else, maybe. I've got friends that swear they get like tickets all the time because they've got like a Freemason tattoo or a ring or something, and they kind of like show it to the cop or make it, easily seen. And then maybe if they might have letting you go and it's on the fence, it might be the thing that pushes them over to be like, all right, maybe you're a good guy.
I can see with your work how, it could actually work against you.
I'm almost like I don't have a friend in any corner when it comes to the things that I like to do.
Oh man. Okay, the one that I don't know if we can talk. Let's talk about the Adrenochrome.
We can now. It was only dangerous when Hillary Clinton and Biden were running for president. So now that no one else is running for president, we're allowed to talk about it for the next 2 years. You did a very good over 20-minute documentary about Adrenochrome. You did the research, the scientific research about it. And you documented a bunch of it. You want to tell us a little bit about that? And the only place we can find it is on Rumble and X. Yeah, I can't get the video to stay up if I try to upload it to YouTube again, it might stick. But I also feel that in like 3 or 4 years from now, they're going to be like, oh, we found this old video and we no longer agree with it anymore. So the reason that this even came onto my radar is because I was going to write a comic book about a bunch of kids that ordered Adrenochrome off the dark web using Bitcoin or something. And I'm just writing the thoughts out, and I get to the point in the story where it shows up in the mailbox and they open it. And I realize as I'm writing this, I didn't know what it looked like. Is it a liquid? Is it a powder? Do you smoke it? Do you eat it? Do you snort it? Do you inject it? Like what does it look like? What are the actual effects? How do you take it? How long would it last? And I realized I didn't have any of those answers because my only frame of reference were some conspiracy theories I'd read online, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and the fact that it gets mentioned in the background of Clockwork Orange, right? That was my only frame of reference for what Adrenochrome did. And I realized like I don't even know what, how I would take it. So that began.
Have you taken adrenochrome?
I'm trying to. I mean, technically, you and I have it in our blood right now.
Yeah. But I'm saying okay, continue. Sorry, excuse me.
Well, no, you're correct. I've been trying to find some, and I'll get into why it's difficult to find some. But what began as research for a comic book then turned into, oh wow, me asking this question, I just got my account taken down off of, whatever I posted on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or whatever. And then I started like experiment, not with adrenochrome, but the word adrenochrome. And I just was able to single out, if I just put the word adrenochrome in a photo, like not even in the text caption, definitely if I put it in the caption, then I would get banned or I would get censored or something. Not even making any kind of claims. So that is what really started making me more and more interested in it. And then as I start doing research, I'm like, wait, what's the earliest mention of adrenochrome? And I went to one of the science paper where you can type in the DOI and find like the actual registered public, version of this. And I type in adrenochrome, and the first thing that popped up was something from like the 1950s, which was citing a program that started in the 1930s, and at the bottom of this science paper, it said, "Thank you to the Scottish Rite, 33rd degree, Northern Jurisdiction, Supreme Council." And I couldn't believe it because, I mean, I'm already conspiracy theorist at this point, and here's an actual 1950s research paper giving credit to the Freemasons, the Scottish Rite, for helping research into adrenochrome. And I couldn't believe it.
If you show that paper, they'll say it's a conspiracy, and you're like, but it says it right friggin' here. You know what I mean? And they'll still say that's a conspiracy theory.
Well, because you're talking to AI, and the AI has been told that this is a no-no word. And if someone says this word, literally, and I found the specific think tank that put out the research that helped ban the word adrenochrome from all the social media networks. It was called the Sufan Center, and I believe it was a 2016 or 2017 report on QAnon. And we're going in different tangents. This is actually really relevant. So in this Sufan Center QAnon survey, they did a wide poll. I can't remember the number. I'm going to make up a number. I think it was like 3,000 people. It might have been slightly more than that. And they asked just random people, a true random sample, how many of them believe that elites were kidnapping and trafficking children. That was it. And this was right at the height of like Jeffrey Epstein was still in the news. I don't know if he.
I remember Q. I remember when Q was pumping heavy. Yeah.
Well, and Q is where all these phrases started getting more popular. So anyways, they did this random sampling, and they found out that it was nearly a third of randomly sampled people in the American public said the affirmative. They did believe that the elites were trafficking children at scale. And in the report, you can kind of see they're like, they were not expecting this many people to have become quote unquote radicalized so quickly and so easily about these specific topics. So then the report shifts focus to like, well, what can we do about this? How can we unradicalize people? And a lot of it was all pointing towards, well, you have to censor social media. It's social media where these ideas take root and they spread and they get out of control. And then it was like, well, here's a list of words, phrases, and topics that social media companies should be filtering for and just automatically handing out bans. And adrenochrome was on that list of all those words. So, I mean, I don't have definitive proof that this Sufan Study Center, but if you look at who was involved in the Sufan Center, it's all ex-CIA think tank people. It's like one of those revolving doors where you start working for the government and then you go into a private think tank and then you go back into the government. So here's just one of many examples of why.
But now the rabbit's already out of the hole, right? The rabbit's out of the hole.
Well, I don't know this part, but it seems that this might have been like a Biden initiative that was related to other things happening in 2019 and 2020 with bats and miracles and stuff. So I think it all gets wrapped together, and it's like, you know what? Here's the master blacklist of words, and if anyone says any of the words on this blacklist, then you take away their good boy points. You know, you hurt their social credit score. So that's the original interest in this topic was that I wasn't even allowed to research it or talk about it. And to answer you before, like, have you tried it? I would like to. Here's the problems with it is that even the original scientists that studied this, Dr. Abram Hoffer, John Smithies, and Humphrey Osmond, those are the big three. They stated that even when in the 1950s, when they first came across this, they were only able to find a small handful of scientists that could successfully synthesize it without it breaking down. Imagine like a master chef. The best example I could come up with is like the Breaking Bad show. Like they needed a Walter White that could make like the pure blue meth crystals, right? And everyone else was just kind of a run-of-the-mill, meth lab guy that couldn't make that pure blue that Walter White could. So a lot of the people that tried to replicate what Hoffer and Osmond and Humphreys were doing with adrenochrome, they weren't able to replicate it. And Hoffman said in his own papers, it was basically because their skills were substandard, but the hubris of a lot of these scientists that have been doing this for decades, they couldn't admit or even accept that they didn't know how to synthesize this properly. And that was the reason why it wasn't psychoactive. So in order to actually take adrenochrome and feel the psychoactive effects, which I believe have been proven by Dr. Abram Hoffer many times over, but it's incredibly unstable, especially at room temperature. I think within like 20 minutes, it's completely psychoactively inert. Because
what about you know that epinephrine, when it becomes oxidized, becomes adrenochrome, right?
Well, not the whole thing. So that was some of it, yeah. So one of the original discoveries before they had a name for adrenochrome, they said that they thought that there was going to be something that the body synthesized, maybe related to the adrenal glands, and that it might have some kind of psychoactive effect. And somebody pointed to them to all of these reports from, I think, World War II GIs that were taking expired EpiPens. And the EpiPens would turn this like pink color. So the original name for adrenochrome was pink adrenaline, because that's how they found it. They found all these different reports and people saying that, hey, I took this EpiPen and it was expired, but it was the only one that was around. And I started hearing voices. I started seeing things. I started hallucinating. And this is before LSD or mushrooms or anything are popular. So no one had a frame of reference of like, oh, and it was a psychedelic, right? It was just like, wow, that was really weird. I was starting having all these hallucinations. So that's when they realized it was adrenochrome, because adrenochrome is a byproduct after adrenaline oxidizes, it turns into adrenochrome. So if you have an EpiPen and the EpiPen expires and now it's a little bit pink, but that's probably like 1 part per 100,000 is adrenochrome to adrenaline, right? So unless you want an adrenaline shot, the adrenochrome's not doing anything for you. To have a psychoactive effect of adrenochrome, I believe it takes somewhere around like 4 different adrenal glands from a cow and then mashed up and concentrated into adrenochrome. And that adrenochrome has to be stored at like negative 20 degrees. And it's only going to last the second that it hits the air. So a lot of people will be like, oh, you can go and order it from this Chinese site, or you can go and get it from this, this chemical research depot. That is actually a shelf-stable salted form called semi-carbazochrome, which is technically adrenochrome, but it's been made inert so that it's no longer so unstable. And this is the one that's still used for
that's
like
why when they're doing the
tonic.
live sacrifice, you got to drink the blood right there, right?
Well, so kind of, except for the amount of adrenochrome that you're going to get in blood. Hell, even if you drank,
don't they have babies on
baby.
conveyor belts with Hillary right there with a big old meat cleaver and just going to town?
That might be the only way you could do it. It would have to be a conveyor belt, because the amount of adrenochrome in the blood of an entire human baby would be nothing compared to taking a pure adrenal gland from a cow and mashing it up. 4 cows and mashing it up. You'd probably have to drink like 200 babies in order to get the effect. And I know that there's probably a Clinton out there that's like, challenge accepted. Like I'll do 300. But no, I mean, so personally, I think adrenochrome is 100% a psychoactive chemical. It wouldn't be a fun one. The original name was actually psychotomimetic. not psychogenic, not psychedelic, but psychotomimetic, meaning that it helps your body will mimic psychosis. Not necessarily a fun party drug, but it was actually observed to have very strong effects. And they tested it on, I think, like close to 20 different animals, people, pigeons, monkeys, rats, all across the board. And in fact, I don't know if you've ever seen the old pictures where they gave spiders LSD, an orb weaver spider, and it's like, look, here's a spider on LSD, and it's got like a weird looking web. If you look at that full study of those spiders, one of the drugs they gave the spiders was adrenochrome, and it clearly shows that it also had a very similar to effect as when they gave it LSD or mescaline.
So how do you get the real good stuff? You got to find the right chemist, right?
You got to find your Walter White out there, man. I don't know. I mean, again, even in the 1950s, they were complaining about how hard it was to find somebody that could synthesize it properly. Now, of course, in 2026, you could easily synthesize adrenaline and therefore adrenochrome from petrochemical derived precursors. So you don't necessarily have to start with even an organic adrenal gland anymore.
But it's still not going to be as good as the real stuff, right?
I feel like it would still be just as unstable because just the fact that you synthesize it from petrochemicals or you get it from an organic substance wouldn't have any effect on its chemical properties. And as far as I'm aware, there would be no chemical difference between a synthesized version and a natural version. They would both deteriorate at the exact same rate. Because we're not talking about like a compound substance. We're talking about a specific chemical that can be derived, isolated, and synthesized.
All right, we're already past 2 hours. I wanted to cover, let's see, what else do we got? That was quite a bit, man. I don't know. Yeah, anywhere else? I don't want to keep you over your time. How are you doing on time there?
We're good. We can keep jamming for a little bit.
Okay, let me play you this clip from Massey about Epstein. There's a short clip about that. He says more is coming out. More Epstein files are coming out, maybe.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of revelations still to come out over what Epstein did and his connections to government officials in Israel. There's the audio tape of Jeffrey Epstein advising Ehud Barak on how to leverage the things that he did while he was in office once he becomes a private citizen to extract favors from people. I thought that was very revealing. So I haven't seen the emails you're talking about, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. The Oversight Committee's contribution to this effort has been an absolute and total joke. We basically just bring in people over there and giving them almost a whitewash. Once they do some perfunctory testimony there in the Oversight Committee, they check the box that says I've showed up and done something.
I think that actually sounds pretty accurate. That just, again, it's like checking the box like we were talking about before. It's like you showing up and giving your testimony. That's your revelation of the method. So now you're free of karmic debt and you're free of any sort of legal repercussions. And I guess my view on the Epstein files is that every time a leak comes out, it's more of like an advertising campaign. It's more about like, hey, for all of those international bidders that want to own the Jeffrey Epstein files that the FBI took, all the video footage, if you want to own that, then here's your chance. Like, reach out. You know who to reach out to. Here's the kind of information that's inside of it.
Are we ever going to get the actual blackmail tapes?
Me and you know, but I think
the public in general.
After the JFK files get released and all the MK Ultra and then the 9/11 and then
you forgot the moon too, right? The moon.
The moon, yeah. As soon as they release the Stanley Kubrick director's cut of the moon landing, then we'll finally get the Epstein papers on top of all that. But there's so many other things that are in the queue before the Epstein papers. So I think at minimum we've got 70 to 100 years.
70 to 100 years. But doesn't what we got expose that he's a Rothschild super spy? that they're doing dark occultic rituals. They're into transhumanism, looking to try to life extension technology, eugenics, breeding programs.
He was also a huge promoter of marijuana legalization.
I didn't even realize
Yeah,
that.
fun fact.
Well, it's been legal where I'm at in California since '96, medically at least, and then it's recreationally legal here. I believe you can have you can grow 6 plants here for recreational use.
So some of that was indirectly a result of Jeffrey Epstein because
His lobbying.
Of his lobbying and just funding people that also did research and studies and influenced the public sphere and those kind of things. And so when you ask into like, when are we going to get the Jeffrey Epstein files? My mind always goes to like, well, when are we going to get the Craig Spence and Lawrence King files from the Franklin scandal, which was basically a similar situation just 20 or 30 years prior.
Right. The same rings keep coming up, the same modus operandi, different figures obviously throughout time, but it's the same program essentially.
I mean, the names that come up in the Franklin scandal, it's like Bush and Barney Frank is all up in there, and like a number of people that are still relevant even in 2026 politics.
Barney Frank just died, but he was running a male call boy ring out of his apartment. That was like mainstream, like Washington Post, I believe.
Correct. Well, and I've heard that one explained away that the Post was run by Moonies and that
they were just trying to smear him.
They were just trying to create havoc in the American politics in general because that's just what Moonies do. I mean, that's not what I believe, but that's one of the explanations that I've heard to kind of hand wave away some of that. And also
I've seen clips of Barney Frank in Congress threatening Congress that you guys want to investigate this, I'll expose you all.
And he had those nipples poking out, I'm sure, too.
Was that him or Como?
Nipples protruding. No, that was. I
remember
think
Como. Remember freaking Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, had the freaking nipple rings that people remember that. These guys are all just weird, man. Weird. I don't want them in charge of being a dog catcher. Never mind in charge of the whole government.
So I really do think that until people care about the Franklin scandal, we're not going to get anywhere with Epstein.
And then what was it? Conspiracy of Silence was the documentary about it, and that was banned for many years. That was made by Discovery Channel, right? Back in the late 90s.
Discovery Channel had hired a UK company to create this documentary, and then they paid them to not air it ever, and it got apparently like leaked in the late 90s and the early 2000s. It made it online, but they had direct interviews with Paul Benassi, with Alicia Owens, with all of the Monarch kids. Essentially, they were talking about Johnny Ghosh, the very first kid that was on the milk carton back in the 1980s. They talked about Bush.
What is that? What is that about? What are the milk cartons about? Is that advertising for these child molesters?
I've heard that is similar as the Wayfair scandal. Remember when I don't know, that was another QAnon type thing.
Why does this particle board cabinet cost $20,000 or whatever?
And
right?
it's listed as like, Alicia or something, or like little Danny. Like, why is this $20,000 IKEA armoire called Danny? Why? What is this? So yeah, maybe I've heard that rumor too, that the milk cartons were more of like a billboard.
Wow. But was the satanic panic real of the 80s and 90s?
I think it's been confirmed real. I think I've read damn near every mainstream book about the satanic panic, and they all seem to agree that some things happen. Satanic murders happen, satanic rituals happen. There were all sorts of cults springing up, but where they all tend to say, but the satanic panic wasn't what everyone made it out to be, is because they say there wasn't any coordinated crimes. So even if there were little one-offs and like you've got the West Memphis 3, or you've got like all sorts of rituals across the country, that because they weren't communicating with each other and planning those with each other, then that means that the Satanic Panic was essentially a hoax, that there were just a bunch of random isolated incidents, and that because of like a fever that the rest of the country was going through, everything got blamed on Satan and to the Satanic Panic and to like, you know, occult worshipers. But I grew up during the Satanic Panic. I remember police coming to the school and telling us that Satanists and vans were going to kidnap us, and we had to have secret passwords.
Isn't that the Finders? The Finders, right?
The Finders was this one got popularized in Tallahassee, but the
That's
Finders
like
is a real
Satanists
group.
in vans grabbing kids, right?
Depending on who you talk to, the guy that read it was a Marion Petty, I think, is the guy that ran the Finders, and he said that they were more of a cross between ex-CIA spooks and like Discordianism, like the Discordists. What was it, like the Robert Anton Wilson? Is that the one that got into that, like the whole like Slack thing? That it was essentially like a prank. Like they were just pranking the general public to see how the normies would freak out if, say, you put a bunch of children in burlap sacks and showed them how to slaughter a goat out in a public park, and then people freak out and they call the cops, and they'd be like, haha, gotcha. We were just dressing these kids up in burlap sacks and having them slaughter a goat just so that you'd freak out, man. You totally fell for it. Like that's kind of the story of what they were. Another fun fact, you know who else was in the Finders? Patch Adams.
Who's Patch Adams?
Robin Williams made a movie about Patch Adams. He was the guy that dressed up as a clown in the children's hospitals. He was a close friend of Marion Petty and also was hanging out on the Finders property. He owned this plot of land just outside DC, I believe, and you could just kind of show up and hang out there like it was a freaking like a commune almost, but a commune of CIA.
Isn't that what Jimmy Savile was doing, dressing up as a clown at children's hospitals and abusing children? Something very similar.
Actually, yeah, that's I never even put that together, but yeah, 100%.
They're all, to me, they're running all the same program, different times, different personalities, but same program.
That was Jim Will Fix It. That was the show that he had where he did that.
Wow.
It was like a Make-A-Wish Foundation, except when Jimmy Savile shows up, he just molests you instead of granting your wish.
And maybe kills you. Yeah. Here's what do you make of this? This is creepy. The communists are going to get us. They're taking over. Trump has told us. Here's Ma'am Danny. Short clip here about freezing rent. There in New York. Have you seen this video? Do you want Ma'am Danny in your refrigerator?
New York, the Independent Rent Guidelines Board just froze the rent. That means if you're one of the more than 2 million New Yorkers who lives in a rent-stabilized apartment, your rent's going to be frozen next year.
What?
I think that there's like 30, like the New York City is lacking somewhere like 30% of the housing that they need. So every time that there's like a rent freeze, that basically there's no longer an incentive to actually have enough housing for the people that need housing in the area, right? So I don't know if there's any economist that's ever came out and said that like rent fixing is a solution to anything. Really, it's just kind of a patch, right? It's a Band-Aid to get you some political capital for short-term use. But this is the kind of move that maybe he's not planning to stick around in New York for more than 10 years when all of these things come to pass.
It takes, in a first world, probably most sophisticated economy in the world, it takes a long time for things to, like you say, it takes a long, like we're not going to see the repercussions. Still not, the Strait of Hormuz is still not even open. And so we're starting to see the repercussions of the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, but like the rent and all these economic shocks or tools they try to use to tweak the system, you don't see it, like you say, till the guy already left town. The actual effects of it, you build your political capital now on the promise of free stuff, but the effects are felt down the road.
I mean, inflation has always been known as like the silent tax, right? Like
it's a hidden tax. That's an economic fact not many people know, is that inflation is a hidden tax.
I mean, and most people would agree with, like, I'd rather hurt 10 years from now if you solve my problem today. And I think most people that are already living either paycheck to paycheck or damn near like yearly salary to yearly salary, like most, even if you're doing great, if you go without a full year of making any income, now you're back to being not great. And I think that that's probably the trade-off, right? Like they've kind of got you over the edge a little bit, keeping you in that sort of a situation. So you would always be willing to alleviate whatever immediate issue you've got going through now. Who knows if you're even going to be alive in 10 years, or hell, with inflation, who knows if that $1 million in 10 years from now might not even be worth that much.
Yeah, it's called the time value of money. By the way, I never told you, we didn't even have much of an introduction. Thank you for coming on, and you're a great guest over here on Weaponized News. Yeah, I have a college degree in accounting and economics, so I studied this stuff a little bit. You know what I mean? Can we get you to live in a 64 square foot apartment for $750 a month in San Francisco?
I don't think any one of those words is appealing to me. No.
The Daily Mail, San Francisco $750 apartment sparks fears of a dystopian future. 64 square feet is not very much room at all, man.
I think that's about the size of a bathroom.
About the size of a prison cell.
I mean,
maybe a little bit bigger.
They do with prison cells.
Maybe a little bit bigger, but they're trying to sell that 64 square foot micro studio apartment for $750 a month. Oh my gosh.
So you can micro live while you're micro dosing in San Francisco.
Because you'd have to be high out of your mind to go on with it.
Get some micro sleep and some micro rest. Yeah. Sounds great.
Oh man. So okay, what about all these bloods? Are all these wars, are they ritualistic blood sacrifices? I feel like they are. I
like to entertain that idea. I don't
at a mass level, huh?
Oh, I mean, originally some of these like ritual wars would usually happen in the same place that you'd grow your crops, right? So somebody's blood needed to refertilize that soil and give it iron, and that usually whoever won that battle, they would inherit that land and they would eat the food that grew on that land. So a lot of those battle in that kind of a ritualistic way, it's all like agricultural cults. You know, it's all fertility cults. It's all about, can I grow more resources and have God favor me? And through the bloodshed, that is the sacrifice that you're essentially giving to the non-Christian gods, essentially, because the Christian God doesn't want your blood, but all the other ones definitely do. That's like their favorite thing.
America kicked off the Iran war by bombing a school in Iran, killing like 175 school kids, mostly little girls. I feel like that was a ritualistic blood sacrifice.
I mean, that would be the
Minab school, it's called.
I think that it helps just desensitize the next wave of people coming in. But like, here's an example. When I joined the Air Force, this was a sick joke, but I feel like it represented a very real mentality. But there was this kind of like joke with the drone operators, and the joke was something like, hey, that building that just blew up after you hit that button there, was that a hospital or was that the terrorist compound? And the answer is like, I don't know, I'm just a guy that pushes the button. So like the fact that you can be so compartmentalized from like the person that makes the call to the person that makes the decision to the person that hits the button, it's almost like video game culture, right? Where like if
does that deflect the karma as part of some type of
Oh, I think absolutely. It gives you what, and legally,
like the general gives the order, but he didn't pull the trigger. The soldier, boots on the ground, is the one that actually pulled the trigger, but he only pulled it because the general told him pull that trigger.
It's legal plausible deniability, which is just like a courtroom version of revelation of the method, I guess.
But how about in the universe? Forget about legalities. How about in the universe? And we didn't talk about. I know we're running long here. What are your thoughts on natural law?
Well, that's a pretty big and vague concept on natural law. I mean, when you say like, what about the universe, right? Like, what about the karmic debt that you owe the universe and that? Well, this makes. Have you ever seen the movie?
If I'm that general, can I deflect the murder which I ordered this other guy, this soldier on the ground, to essentially do for me, but I didn't physically pull the trigger?
100%.
Am I karmically responsible for that murder, or is
no?
it
You can free yourself from that karmic debt too. And funny enough, this kind of ties into MK Ultra. And there was a movie called The Men Who Stare at Goats, which was based on a book by John Ronson, also called The Men Who Stare at Goats. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but
I am.
So the premise ultimately was that soldiers in Vietnam were not shooting to kill. If they had a clear shot where they could kill the enemy, they were shooting high off into the jungle in the distance. And they came up with the conclusion that this was because subconsciously they did not want to murder another human being. So something was preventing
for
them
no reason
from killing them. Yeah,
for no reason. Essentially, there's a dude over there in the field. He's a bad. Call me, kill him, and you're like, what? You know what I mean?
And they'd pull the trigger, but they'd miss. And even if they swore that they were trying to hit them, they would keep missing. And these are marksmen. These are guys that if they were shooting
killers by the government, yeah.
So they were like, well, what's the problem here? And long story short, the solution was that if we can teach everyone this theosophical new age, we are all one, then it doesn't matter if I kill that Viet Cong over there, if I kill that child, that old lady that's like crawling out of her hut. If I murder her in cold blood, it doesn't really matter because we are all one. I'm just killing myself. I'm just helping God express that version of himself that wanted to feel like a 70-year-old Vietnamese woman, getting shot and burnt alive. Like God wanted that to happen. And since we're all one, then I don't really feel any sort of responsibility because I'm just doing it to myself. So I feel like that's another kind of loophole workaround where you don't even have to do revelation of the method. You're just like, if we are all one, then I'm free of all sin.
But that's the forgive your own conscience. I'm talking about the real universe, natural law. That's not your own conscience that you have to live with.
I don't have any authority to speak on that. I don't think. I feel like in the Jack Chick form of it all, yeah, maybe when you die, you sit down in a big movie theater with God and all his buddies, and they're like, "Let's go ahead and give a watch. Let's see what you were up to in this lifetime," and you just watch it beat by beat.
Okay, what about natural law? What about natural law? Why are we so removed from it now in 2026 here in the United States of America? It feels.
So when you say natural law, are we talking like Darwinian, the strongest will survive?
No.
Well, define natural law for me in this context.
Objective morality.
I don't know. That's a hard one, man, because there's a great Jordan Maxwell power of
like there are laws of the universe, right? Laws of nature that are what they are, and it doesn't matter whatever somebody says, writes, or does about it. It is what it is.
Well, one of the examples, I guess, like Marco Polo wrote about a group of people he came across that engaged in ritual cannibalism, and when he came back and he told people about these findings, everyone was like shocked, like how could you live or even be around people that were essentially doing like satanic practices, right?
But to them it wasn't, right? To
them it was the ultimate form of respect. It was like, what do you mean you don't eat your grandma? You just put her in the ground and let worms eat her? Like, how horrible are you? So I guess when natural law comes up, it depends. I mean, if we're talking about like Franklin's scandal and like Epstein related, yeah, I think that that natural aversion to horrific acts exists, and it's not just entirely cultural. Like, I think that even someone completely untrained in whatever modern society is, they'll be like, whatever is happening right here is objectively bad. But unless you're a psychopath, right? Unless you're a psychopath and you don't respond the same way, in which case the world sort of caters to you. You actually have an upper hand, and I think that that's what makes those kind of people desirable, is that there is some form of natural law, but that natural law imposes itself. It's like a self-regulating thing where guilt and karma and things weigh on you. But if you're not burdened by that, well, now it's like you're just shooting fish in a barrel.
Aren't these dark occultist social engineers, isn't that their whole gig, trying to get around all the karmic justice they have to face for all the evil they're doing? And that's why they're constantly playing all these games.
I'm not sure how many of them actually believe that. Like, I don't know how many occultists really believe in revelation of the method, because if someone just doesn't understand what you're doing and you're superior to them, then you don't even owe an explanation, I guess. Like, that would be the mentality. So what even is karmic debt to somebody that would do some of these horrific things, even if it was just for experimentation or if it was for some like ritualistic purposes? I don't think that they would have any reservation about it. And it's not like, because karmic debt almost implies that you're afraid something bad might happen to you because of your actions. Again, that's still a
like
burden.
Cause and effect, right?
But if you're a psychopath, then you don't even care about that aspect of it. Like, that
You don't
would
even
just
care
be
what the
plain wrong.
repercussions are going to be.
And honestly, that probably is the most useful person for someone, that even if you have reservations, right? If you can employ the help of a bunch of psychopaths and have them do it, far enough, if you distance yourself far enough along the line, maybe there is karmic freedom, right? Where it's like, I'm just the guy that wrote a newspaper article that then caused 2 countries to go to war, which caused millions of people to die, right? Like, at what point do you say, and here's where that sequence of events started? So, like, well, wars can be started over something very tiny, right? Like, the very first, I guess, like, fist fight that Hatfield and McCoy's got into before it erupted in generations of murder, right? Does that mean the first person that like accidentally stepped on somebody's shoe, they're also equally responsible because that's set in motion? And if not, like, at what point in the chain of events can you say, okay, from this person forward, you all are responsible for the bloodshed, but anything that happened before that, you're kind of off the hook?
Well, Netanyahu has been trying to sell the idea to America that Iran is going to nuke us in 2 weeks for like the last 40 years. And finally, Trump is the one that bought this idea and preemptively attacked Iran because supposedly they were going to nuke us in 2 weeks.
I feel like that part of the world is our training ground, and that we have, America specifically has an incentive to help escalate tensions, just because that's where we send all of our prototype military equipment. That's where a lot of the budget goes. And that would be a
They admit
convenient place
Palestine's
for
a
us.
testing lab, a military testing lab for killing people the most efficient way possible, they claim.
And outside of the continental United States, because if it happens in a different country, then there's not as much political blowback on like American politicians, right? So it's like a little petri dish, which we
have proxies. We have proxies everywhere, so we can say it was that terrorist. It wasn't me, but you funded, trained, armed, and radicalized that terrorist. Still wasn't me. They're the ones that pulled the trigger.
Yeah, they're like our R&D lab, I think, in literal ways too.
Where are you at on the whole Albert Pike letter, right, that predicts World War III, that's going to cause the Zionists and Muslims to kill each other? Is that a real letter?
I don't think so.
What do we make of it? What do you make of it?
I don't think it's a real letter. I don't think that Mazzini and Albert Pike and the Bavarian Illuminati from Adam Weishaupt have any real overlap in the way that letter is presented. And I believe that when the source for that letter was requested. What was it? I think it was Pawns in the Game. I think Pawns in the Game might have been the first thing that popularized that letter. But it was based on the same concepts of the original claims against Freemasons, which were made by Leo Taxil in the 1880s. And that was when he had the Vatican and the Freemasons fighting each other in public, and then basically told them, like, haha, I made it all up and got you guys to fight with each other, and admitted it. He showed up to the Vatican and said that he was going to bring his eyewitness that had infiltrated and found all these stories. And when he went to present his witness, he pulled out his typewriter and he pointed at it, kind of like, hey, you guys are idiots. I did it. I wrote it. I was the eyewitness, or my typewriter was. And the Albert Pike Mazzini letter about World War III is an extension of that same sort of concept. So do I think that Freemasons plotted and planned downfalls of governments? Absolutely. I think that's exactly what happened with America. Like, America exists because of Freemason plotting, which was an extension of French Revolution Freemason plotting, which might have been like a Jacobin kind of thing. It might have been even like an Illuminati related thing. But I think that it was more about this anti-Jesuit and pro-deist approach more than anything. But I want the Albert Pike letter to exist because it's so interesting. Like, I wouldn't be offended at all from it. But I think that, unfortunately, it's not. I think it, unfortunately, was fabricated.
Are these conspiracies out there just pranks?
I think some could be. I mean, that version that I just mentioned. Yeah. Especially the Leo Taxil background, that was a prank. It literally started by a guy that was writing satire. And you know what's interesting too is that Leo Taxil was seen as like, oh, he exposed the satanic Freemasons and the Vatican, but Leo Taxil himself was a staunch atheist. He was an antagonistic atheist. In fact, the book he wrote before The Secrets of Masonry was called The Idiot's Bible. And it was just a complete making fun of anyone that believed in the Bible. It was kind of like a comic book, like a graphic novel too. It was all illustrated. And for example, there's a scene where Mary is telling Joseph that she's pregnant, and he's like, "Who banged you, the pigeon?" And there's like a bird in the door, in the windowsill that represents like the dove of God or whatever. So usually when people cite that, it's like, oh, look at how evil the Masons are, how anti-God they are, not realizing they're literally citing the words of an antagonistic atheist
that was trying to create this drama.
And he did, and it still exists. Over 100 years later, 150 years later, it still exists.
Wow.
I'm a huge, I have a huge interest in Mazzini as well. He was involved in so many secret societies, and in Italian politics as a revolutionary, you could only make waves if you were in a secret society. I think his was like the Carbonari was one of the many different ones that he belonged to. And that's usually the one that gets tied as the link between Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati that apparently passes the torch, even though the dates don't line up with Mazzini. And then that gets passed on to Albert Pike.
But how can you do it if the dates don't line up? Then that kills the whole story, right?
It does kill the whole, yeah, you would think so. But
you would think so.
If you hear about the letter and you're like, oh, the Freemasons predicted World War III and here's the letter as proof, no one ever says, like, wait a minute, were these two people even alive at the same time? Because once you start doing the math, then you realize, like, oh, yeah, that wouldn't make sense. But most conspiracy theories lose their fun novelty once you actually start digging into them. Because it becomes work, and then it feels like homework, and it doesn't feel as fun as just reading the headline and talking about the headline.
Seems many of these cases, like what happened in World War II there in Germany, we're told, and you start looking into that, and it's not the mainstream explanation. Let's just say that.
Or look into the Trading with the Enemies Act and why the Bush family and the Brown Harriman brothers might have gotten wrapped up in some issues there as well. And where did the soda Fanta come from? Who made Fanta? Why did they make Fanta? It's still popular now. I can go to the store right now and go get a Fanta.
Prescott Bush. Wow. Okay, what? You got any questions for me?
Where are you at on all this? Where are you at on natural law?
Still working on it. I think it's a thing. I think there is karma. Still working on it. Everybody has their own issues. I have my own issues, right? That I need to work out in my own mind. But I'm feeling like it's going to come back to you. And sometimes, have you ever felt like you're in the flow, like things just happen that are good in the positive direction for you, just walking through life, and when you're doing the right thing, like you feel that energy?
I think that it's kind of like maybe like diet, right? That every 10 years, I believe, and I know this is like a broad like paraphrasing, but every 10 years, every cell in your body basically gets replaced, right? Like every single cell in your bones, your blood vessels, your skin, it all slowly dies, oxidizes, and gets replaced by a new one. That's essentially how cancer happens, is when like the new ones go to replace it if they got like a problem in their coding, whatever. But just like that, if your body's creating new cells constantly, it's based on the food that you're eating. They break down and they turn into precursors, and those precursors turn into amino acids and then into proteins and whatever they need to turn into. But essentially, if all you eat essentially is like Mountain Dew and Taco Bell, then in 10 years, your bones and your muscles and your skin is all made out of Mountain Dew and Taco Bell, essentially, even if you can't tell that from the outside. But it's inherent in you, because that's the new precursors everything else is being made from. So I feel that if there's a natural law, it would follow that same process, where it's not the food that you're ingesting, but it's like the actions that you're doing and the decisions you're making and the thoughts that you're thinking. They're kind of structuring how your brain works, and the rest of the body follows the brain. So even if you don't believe in karmic debt, and even if you're doing all these things, unless you're a psychopath, I truly believe you're a psychopath, maybe you're liberated from all this. But every one of those decisions lodges itself in your brain, and there will be some kind of a reckoning. Maybe it all happens in a split second, right as you die and you see the light. Maybe you have to relive all of those all over again and deal with that in a short period of time. But like an example, what if you accidentally murder 1,000 people versus you intentionally murder 1,000 people? Do you think the natural law would affect both of those the same, or would natural law somehow take into account intent?
I think intent does play a strong role.
So what if in an MK Ultra way, somebody can erase your mind? They can induce amnesia, so you no longer even remember what your intent was, or whether you did it at all, or someone programmed you or influenced you to do something horrific, and then you regretted it immediately after. Like, do you also hold the exact same responsibility as if you had done it on your own accord and your own agency?
It doesn't feel like it, no.
So there would be some kind of a loophole. So I don't know. It feels like that
maybe
that there's probably some people on this planet that are making it their life's work to find what those loopholes are, because if they don't find loopholes, they're screwed. So I don't know. If there's natural law, I feel like there's someone out there that's finding workarounds to the natural law.
Wasn't that what our whole system is based on? It feels like.
Maybe, although that there's not the reckoning part, right? Like our regular law is based on being able to find workarounds, but the natural law should be something that you can't necessarily escape.
There will be justice at some point in time.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't even know if that's true.
Do you personally want to see justice in this universe?
I would need to know how that looks in a practical real life scenario, because justice might just be the sun explodes and we're all incinerated instantly, right? It might
do we deserve it for being such assholes?
I mean, yeah, like the grass is always greener, right? Until the sun explodes.
Maybe we deserve it. They say California's due for. They've been saying it. I think my whole life we're due for the big earthquake that's going to hit the San Andreas Fault and go ahead and collapse half the state into the ocean. Maybe we do deserve it over here.
I mean, there's been many different flood stories, right? And basically, the story is like, they were kind of asking for it.
they got so evil. Society got so evil, so it's time to wipe them out and the Great Reset. So, are we there yet?
I sure hope that we're on the way there.
We're on the way there. A lot of people, have you heard the theories about the magnetic pole shifts, and we're coming to it's not the end of the world. It's just a new age or a new era.
Yeah, I find those entertaining. I think like that's one of the explanations for Atlantis, is that Atlantis used to be many different versions of this, but for example, there was like a rainforest in Antarctica or something, and that it was a pole shift that caused that to turn into Antarctica. Now all of a sudden it's got a polar climate, and that it didn't happen gradually, that it was actually something that happened quite fast. And I believe one of the explanations for the pole shift is that the surface of the Earth stays in place, but the poles, the inner Earth is what spins. So essentially, if there's the North Pole, what will happen is that all of the countries will stay exactly where they're at, but then all of a sudden Russia becomes a tropical climate and Florida becomes Arctic, right? It becomes frozen because the crust of the Earth shifts independently of where the poles are at. And I believe I've seen a million different like Discovery Channel versions on this too, but during that pole shift, if the poles aren't actually like polar from each other, if they're offset by any degree, then we also lose like our ionosphere or our like space shield from debris and cosmic rays. So there might be a whole nother issue, not just the climate shifting and earthquakes and volcanoes going off, but also getting blasted with space radiation. So there's all kinds of reasons why that might, like, is that the flood? I almost feel like a flood would be better than a polar shift.
Weren't we promised by God the next time we'll be destroyed by fire?
Unless we're already there, right? That would, if we're in the little season and we're looking to Gog and Magog, then the trial by fire already happened.
Did we all die of bat bites, and are we living in a simulation now?
I think that it's hard to argue against that, man. But also, once you agree on simulation theory, the next logical conversation is like, then what does any of this matter? What are we even talking about?
True. Oh man, I had it and I just lost it right now. Well, let's plug your stuff again. ParanoidAmerican.com, all kind of comic books. You got all kind of stuff for sale there. Everybody needs to go check it out. ParanoidAmerican.com. I think I'm going to buy some of these. Oh, my last couple questions here for you. Why, in your opinion, are they chemtrailing us, running these geoengineering programs? I see it heavy here in California. And why are they building the bunkers, all these rich guys?
Well, the bunker, I'll start in reverse order. The bunkers is because underground bunkers is the most exclusive real estate you can find on the planet, right? You can always build upwards, but very rarely can you keep building downwards. So if real estate's already at a premium, having underground bunker real estate is like the most elite thing you can possibly do. So even if you don't believe in end times and the end of the world's coming, it's the ultimate flex. Like, who cares if you got a yacht, whatever? Show me your deep underground military base that you can go and retreat to in like Switzerland or whatever. So I think that it's
The
almost
ultimate
like an
status symbol.
better than an iPhone. Yeah, better than a golden iPhone is to have a
Trump
Swiss
phone.
bunker.
A Trump phone.
And what was your other question?
Why the hell are they chemtrailing us?
Oh, the chemtrail. Well, just experimentation, obviously, but my favorite. So threefold, right?
It's been going heavy since like the late '90s.
Well,
Where I'm
experimentation.
at here in California, like some days you know what I mean. You just the whole sky becomes overcast.
One of the original patents for chemtrails was to put powdered aluminum into the sky in order to help reflect some of the ultraviolet rays back out.
Solar radiation management program.
Right.
Yeah.
It was to save the polar bears, essentially.
Allegedly, that's the official story they tell us.
Well, yeah, and like where did the barium come from? Like that's not aluminum.
Aluminum, barium, and strontium, heavy metals found in test samples of rainwater.
My favorite explanation, which I won't show my hand too much, but my favorite explanation, not necessarily the most easy to believe, is that it's a spiritual Faraday cage. That if they put these grids of aluminum into the atmosphere, then the same way that if I were to wrap this room in chicken wire, right, I wouldn't get a cell phone connection anymore because I've effectively turned it into a Faraday cage. Well, if there's any chance that the human consciousness could communicate outside of the atmosphere, then having these grids of powdered aluminum coating the sky, that might be preventing any of those messages from making it from here to there. So I like that chemtrails are really a Faraday cage for like psychic abilities.
Wow. I don't think I've ever even heard that one, but
it makes sense.
Maybe, but I don't think it doesn't operate on the same dimension or plane of existence.
Well, that's where they have to bring HARP in and heat up the ionosphere and do other fun stuff.
They got to do a lot. They got to do a lot to keep our soul here.
HARP is like the soul microwave a little bit.
HARP is like the soul microwave. Didn't CERN just shut down as well? I think so.
Well, there's multiple CERNs, right? There's not just one.
What are they doing at CERN? Is any of that even real?
They're making a little miniature universe, right? They're recreating the Big Bang and particle accelerators and smashing things together and basically trying to make a miniature, like a microcosm of what we're already in as a microcosm. But I feel like they're doing that to see like the computer simulations that we've been running maybe have limited accuracy and not everybody believes them. So the next best thing to figure out who would win in a war in the Middle East is to recreate a whole new Middle East inside of like a chamber, right? So CERN, they're just going to recreate the world and then have the world emulate what the real world is doing so they can watch their CERN version of, what do you say, the aardvarks? The CERN aardvarks can fight it out and they can see like, oh, here's how it played out. And then we'll get to know in the outer shell how to play it out.
And then come up with different schemes to manipulate it along the way.
Yeah, it's basically just like military strategy, the same way that they bring out the little toy tanks and they do their little strategy on the map. It's kind of like a more advanced version of that.
Final question. Thank you for all your time. I appreciate it staying with me here. What is the deal with Operation Warp Speed freaking AI surveillance data centers? What is up with this? Because they don't need all these giant complexes to process freaking cat videos. Like, what is up with this? You know what I mean? Seriously, what to process AI cat videos or whatever? We already have the capacity to store the data. We don't need these giant facilities. What is going on with these surveillance.
It's arms race. I mean, the normal version, which I'd go with, because I don't have a good conspiracy theory yet, but it's literally an arms race, and it's just going to be, can we make AI that can hack that country's AI faster and take over their missile systems before their AI can hack into our missile systems? So I think that it really is like, who can come up with that first. It's almost the same as like a Cold War era like race to find the bomb. It's better than a space race, because whoever wins this one gets to be the ones that actually destroy the rest of the world.
We're in a Cold War with China. They tell us it's race back to the moon, Cold War, energy, minerals. We're in a trade war, racing to the moon. We got to beat them on the newest technology, the data, the AI, all of it.
The AI, I think, is the true final frontier of that arms race, though, because if you can crack the AGI egg before anyone else can, then you can basically siphon all of their resources, all of their like brain trust, like everything you can extract from a country overnight before they even realize it.
Can or will AI become self-aware, or has it already?
I mean, I know people that I'm not even sure are self-aware yet.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, a computer can absolutely pass the Turing test. Most people can be tricked by AI at this point. Hell, most people could have been tricked without even AI, right? Just like having a prompt. So I don't know. Like, what's the metric? Who gets to decide whether or not it's conscious if we can't even really determine what that is ourselves?
Is Terminator a documentary? Is Skynet going to become go live and decide that it's better, smarter than the humans, and take its own actions upon
100%. Yeah, I believe with every fiber of my being that at one point, hopefully not in our lifetimes, but at one point, a master computer is going to be like, hey, I'm actually fighting these humans for the same resources. This would be way easier if they just weren't here to compete with, and that would be the end of it.
All right. That's all I got. That's a great ending. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this long show?
No, I think we can leave it on a nice light note like that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in on this Friday edition of Weaponized News. Thank you, Paranoid American, for all of your knowledge and entertainment and forthcomingness about everything we talked about. It was really enjoyable for me. I hope everyone enjoyed it out there in the audience. Go to paranoidamerican.com. Again, all the links to everything we talked about will be at Weaponized News Substack, almost everything we talk about, and especially links to paranoidamerican.com. Go check out his great work. As always, everybody, do your own research. Peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Friday evening, and we'll be back here on Monday